All right. So officially, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Nicoya Dobson, and I am the president of the Duplin County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Welcome to our 2020 Virtual Candidates Forum. We are honored to have you join us as we strive to educate and inform our community on the candidates that will appear on the 2020 November 3rd ballot, or actually early voting or one stop beginning on October 15 ballot. Thank you for taking the time out of your schedule. As many of you know, we are a nonpartisan organization. We do not endorse, nor do we contribute to any political candidate nor campaign, Again, thank you for your time, and we look forward to this candidates forum. At this time, I am going to introduce the Social Action Chair for our chapter, Ms. Anita Powers Branch, who will bring you greetings as well as introduce our moderator for today's forum.
Good afternoon, everyone. Can you hear me? Thank you so much for being with us today and agreeing to participate in our Duplin County 2020 Virtual Candidates Forum. Today, I will be introducing our moderator. Our moderator for today is Jaquel Swenson. She is a retired educator from Green Evers, North Carolina. She taught for over 40 years. She attended Winston-Salem State University, where she earned her Bachelor of Arts degree in English education and a Master of Arts in teaching English education from the University of North Carolina at Wilmington. She has taught in 3 different states and perceives education as an institution that should be valued and revered. A community organizer, volunteer, former councilwoman, and former mayor of Green Evers, and an advisor for an organization to assist with the development of young ladies, CHARMS, creating harmony, academics, recreation, motivation, service, and success. Although she describes herself as a committed servant, her precious moments are spent reading, writing poetry, and volunteering as a journalist for 3 local organizations. She's most recently authored An Educator's Legacy, The Teacher Next Door, a guide or curricular buddy for young teachers. She has served her community and her country. She's a proud member of New Christian Chapel Missionary Baptist Church, the Duplin County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated, the Duplin Sampson Winston-Salem State University Alumni Association. She served 10 years in the United States Army Reserves and resigned in the rank of captain to spend more time with her daughters. And she also has 1 granddaughter. So at this time, I will turn our forum over to our moderator, Ms. Jaquel Swenson.
Thanks, Anita. I also would like to thank the candidates and representatives who have made themselves available for this political forum. I will now begin by sharing the rules and guidelines for the forum. I will state the rules and explain the format to the audience. I will be responsible for enforcing the time limits and may interrupt the forum to enforce the ground rules. Candidates, we will give you an opportunity to have your opening statements in the order in which they appear on the Duplin County ballot. You will be allowed 3 minutes to make an opening statement, 2 minutes to answer the questions, and 2 minutes to make a closing statement. Your statements and responses will be timed. An assigned timekeeper will keep time and will signal when 30 seconds left. Where both candidates in a contested race are participating, candidates will alternate the order of speaking. The candidate who makes the first opening statement will answer the first question after the other candidate and the alternate thereafter. This will continue throughout the questioning and closing statements. The time limits will be as set forth herein above. Any candidate unable to attend the forum but will be sending a representative is asked to send a picture and a short biography. We will display the picture while their bio is being read. Thereafter, the representative will be given 3 minutes to make a presentation on behalf of their candidate. If the candidate is providing a video, it shall not exceed 3 minutes. Candidates are encouraged and welcome to participate in the entire forum. However, in consideration of candidates' busy schedules, you are receiving the time you need to log in on the Zoom. The sorority claims copyright ownership of any recordings or transcripts produced. The sorority reserves the right to publicize the forum and may, at their option, invite the media or some other entity not associated with any other candidate or campaign to provide televised, radio, or other coverage of the forum. No voice, image, or other duplication of the forum may be used by any candidate's representative or campaign in any campaign advertising. Please acknowledge receipt of these rules. Reminder, candidates with opponents will not have the opportunity for a rebuttal of the other statements. As we continue with the forum, I will now introduce the candidates and the representatives who are with us today. We will begin with North Carolina Governor Roy Cooper. His representative is Stephanie Woolley-Peace. She will take this time to share anything about Roy Cooper in her endorsement, as well as and that includes the 3 minutes.
Well, thank you. Yes. Thank you all so much, the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta. Thank you so much for having me. And the governor says hello. He truly regrets that he could not be with you this evening. But on behalf of him and his chief of staff, Christy Jones, who is also a member of Delta Sigma Theta, hello. We are less than 30 days from Election Day. And this, as you have heard time and time again, this is the most important election of our lifetime. And I must acknowledge, the governor has acknowledged several times that these last few months have been difficult. We've been forced to adjust to a new way of life, to curb the spread of coronavirus in a state. Many of us have unfortunately lost loved ones to this virus, and we've been pushed beyond our financial, emotional limits. Many of us are hurting right now, but I still have hope because you, along with our governor, our council of state candidates, and North Carolinians across this state have shown up and shown out. You have used your voices to help create a more equitable, equal, and accepting North Carolina. And we cannot thank you enough. I hope you know that Governor Cooper is with you. He is fighting every day for the safety, health, and security of all North Carolinians. He is working to ensure that we operate based on facts and science, and that we operate in empathy and equality. He's working for all of us, not just those of us who look and think like him. Governor Cooper has pushed hard to reduce the number of witnesses needed for the absentee ballot, to allow more precinct officials to be from any precinct in the county, and to permit absentee requests to be submitted by fax, email, and online portal. But as hard as Governor Cooper is fighting, he can't do this alone.
Thank you so
and
much.
we thank you.
We're sorry to have to interrupt.
No, understood. Thank you so much.
Give them our regards and best wishes to all of you. Have a good day, and thanks again for coming.
Thank you.
All righty. As we move along, next we will have representing our North Carolina Attorney General, Josh Stein's representative is Mr. John Brown.
Good afternoon, everybody. It's always a pleasure to spend some time with the hardest working women on the planet, and none other than Delta Sigma Theta. I'm John Brown, and I serve as the AG's political director. You know, as we hit this final step.
John, give me share a little bit about Attorney General Josh Stein.
Not a problem.
Okay, and then you may share your remarks.
Absolutely.
All right, provide your endorsement. Attorney General Josh Stein was sworn in as North Carolina's 50th Attorney General on January 1st, 2017. And as Attorney General, Josh protects the people of North Carolina by supporting victims of crime, including domestic violence, sexual assault, and human trafficking, just to name a few. Between 2009 and 2016, Josh served as the state Senate and was a champion for public education, clean energy, and public safety. His Republican and Democratic colleagues selected Josh as the most effective Democratic senator. Among other honors, Equality North Carolina selected Josh as the inaugural 2013 Jamie Kirk Hahn Alley Award for his long-standing efforts to enact the Non-Discrimination in State Employment Act. After earning his law and public policy degrees from Harvard University, he worked with the Self-Help Credit Union, transforming abandoned drug houses in Durham into affordable single-family homes. He also worked with the North Carolina Minority Support Center, raising capital to invest in small businesses across North Carolina. For 3 years, he co-chaired the capital campaign for Interact, Wake County's domestic violence organization. Josh currently serves on the board of Truth Initiative, America's largest nonprofit public education organization. Josh and his wife, Anna, have been married for more than 20 years, and they have 3 children, Sam, Adam, and Leah. He and Anna both attended North Carolina public schools, as have their kids or children. I introduce Josh Stein in his absence. We're glad to have his representative, John Brown. Now you may proceed. Thank you.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me. You know, as we hit this final stretch of election day, I can truly say the Department of Justice has made some very hard-fought gains in North Carolina against this coronavirus pandemic. I've been working to address those challenges while continuing to uphold other responsibilities like protecting people's rights in our environment and our access to healthcare. And to make it quite simple, the Attorney General is your lawyer. You know, AG Stein fights every single day to protect the citizens of this state, from the smallest fraudster on the street all the way up to the president. And I think the very top of that list is reforming our criminal justice system. You know, after the tragic killings of George Floyd and Breonna Taylor, shout out to the governor for acting swiftly and establishing the North Carolina Task Force for Racial Equity and Criminal Justice, where the Attorney General Justice Anita Earls co-chair. They've got a very committed task force, members from a broad range of perspectives in our criminal justice system, a lot of backgrounds. They've had a lot of working group meetings and listening sessions for community advocates. And these conversations have been very critical to addressing a lot of the racial inequities that have been recognized. And a lot of those recommendations have already been made for law enforcement practices and trainings and court fines and fees. And obviously, there's more work to do on that front. But your feedback is essential to that process, and you can share your thoughts with the task force at ncdoj.gov/TREC. Protecting people experiencing financial hardships during this pandemic. The AG launched the Carolina Relief Plan for institutions to support customers facing those hardships. Bank of America and the State Employees Credit Union have already joined that effort, and making sure your vote is counted. The right to vote safely and participate in free and fair elections is fundamental to our democracy. The Attorney General understands that, and that's why he sued the U.S. Postal Service and the Postmaster General for implementing dramatic operational changes that could delay those processes. And just this past week, the court ordered the Postal Service to reverse many of those damaging changes. Working to protect North Carolinians against scams and frauds, and spearheading a coalition of attorney generals across this country to fight against illegal robocalls and defending our rights against polluters and price gougers. A lot of these things, the Attorney General understands to be a voice for the voiceless, and that's why I think hiring Josh Stein for another 4 years to be our AG is the best decision at this time. And thank you for having me, and I appreciate your time.
Thank you so very much, and give him my regards, and you have a good day, and thanks for coming. All right, the next person I would like to introduce, or the candidate, is running for North Carolina Auditor. It is Beth A. Wood. Beth Wood is now beginning her third term as the North Carolina's elected state auditor. She is a certified public accountant and a longtime public servant with nearly 25 years of auditing experience. She worked in the state auditor's office for more than a decade before being elected in 2008. Before joining OSA, she worked in the state treasurer's office and in the private sector. She is the first woman elected state auditor in North Carolina. During her tenure, the office has performed audits to help state leaders cope with the worst economic conditions since the Great Depression. Those audits have focused on contracting practices that favored vendors at the expense of taxpayers and holding officials at all levels accountable for the way they do business. The audits published by OSA have saved the state hundreds and even millions of dollars. Beth continues through her work as state auditor to help strengthen and improve state government. Audit teams across the state are watching every area of state government for potential savings and to ensure the best use of taxpayers' dollars. Additionally, the office is following up on prior audits, evaluating the use of best practices by state agencies, and working also to attract and retain highly skilled auditors. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ms. Beth A. Wood. Thank you.
Thank you so much, and thank you, Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, for allowing us this opportunity. While you don't endorse, getting out the message to citizens is critical. And again, I thank you for this opportunity to help tell people about why I'm the best candidate. So the state auditor's office looks at, I'll say it's a down ballot race that a lot of people are not really sure what we do. And so I would tell you, the state of North Carolina is spending $46 billion of your taxpayer dollars. All of us are sending in state income taxes. Many of us, all of us, when we shop, we're paying sales tax. When we drive, we're paying gas tax. And many people have their own businesses or paying corporate taxes. The state of North Carolina is also receiving another $21 billion from the federal government. And that is nothing more than federal income taxes that we pay that go to Washington, D.C. and come back to the state of North Carolina in the form of Medicaid or food stamps or money for clean water and air. So the state auditor's office is the only eyes and ears that citizens of North Carolina have for overseeing how your tax dollars are being spent, how they're being accounted for, and how they're being reported. Again, $46 billion. Income tax, sales tax, gas tax, corporate tax, federal grants. These are the monies that are running our state government, and the state auditor's office is the only eyes and ears that you have on how these monies are being spent. Because here's what happened. If we waste any dollars, only two things can happen. Either the services for which that dollar was to provide will not happen, or the government will have to come back to us, the taxpayers, and get more money to replace those wasted dollars. So the state auditor's office under my administration, as was said, we have identified hundreds of millions of dollars, but more important than that, under my administration, we have produced irrefutable findings. So we have talked about monies that were wasted in our state government. We have produced audit reports with findings that the agencies could not argue with. And therefore, our governor and our General Assembly have made agencies stop wasting our tax dollars. I'm the only candidate who's a CPA. I'm the only candidate who's worked in the state office for 10 years. I'm sorry, I thought we had 3 minutes.
Yeah, you may add a few more comments. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so I was going to say I'm the only candidate that's a CPA and has made a difference in how our state government. I'm proven, I am qualified, and certainly undeterred. I ask for your support. Thank you.
All right. When we get a 30-second warning. That's why I was telling you have a few minutes.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
You prepared how you wanted to bring it to a closure. Thank you. So listen, you have to hear that. Can you all hear that?
I am timing myself.
She said you saw it. That's wonderful. Thank you so much for coming. And we value the work that you all do. So continue to come back, all right? Okay, now we have some questions for you. Just a minute.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, the first question that we would like for you to respond to is, you have been North Carolina auditor since 2009. If reelected, what new proposal or protocols will you work to implement to ensure North Carolina's financial stability? Am I muted? Did you hear that, ma'am?
No.
You can't hear?
I can now.
But you can hear me now. Let me repeat it then. I'm sorry. Ms. Wood, okay. You've been North Carolina State Auditor since 2009. If reelected, what new proposals or protocols will you work to implement to ensure North Carolina's financial stability?
We have built in the State Auditor's Office Data Analytics Division. No auditor, no manager of any huge dollars can survive moving forward without data analytics to handle big data and to show us where significant taxpayer dollars are at risk. We look for patterns, we look at outliers, we look at data and perform analytics to pinpoint the dollars that are at risk to be abused or misspent, and to do it quickly so that we can put our auditors on the right projects, the biggest dollars as soon as possible. And we have built that division last year, and now we'll be implementing and moving forward with that division over the next 4 years. That's probably the greatest achievement that we have just put in place and be moving forward with over the next 4 years.
All right. The next question is, what audits are required to be completed or implemented every year, and what audits are discretionary?
So the financial statement audits on the state of North Carolina, on the 17 universities, and on the 158 community colleges, those financial statement audits required every year. The discretionary audits are called performance audits and even information technology. So again, we have a list of risk identified areas in state government where your tax dollars are at risk for being misspent in a large magnitude, or we're looking at issues where that has a large impact. The dollars may not be of a big magnitude, but the impact, and I'll tell you one in particular. We just looked at the 133 online courses that the Department of Public Instruction has out there. We looked at 12 of the 133, and we found, based on that statistical sample, that the majority of the online classes that the Department of Public Instruction is offering to our middle school students and our high school students do not meet North Carolina education standards. These classes have been out there for 13 years. And kids in our rural counties have been taking these classes for 13 years, and they do not meet North Carolina education standards.
Okay.
It's an $18 million program. That's small compared to the billions of dollars that are spent in education. But think of 85 rural counties that these classes were meant to reach, classes they can't get in their own high school, and they do not meet North Carolina education standards. So the impact, whether dollars or the outreach, these are the discretionary audits that we are looking into.
You time yourself just perfectly. Thank you so much. And again, we appreciate what you're doing. We wish you well on this venture, and, you know, think about us back here in Duplin County, all right? Have a good day.
I will, and if there's ever an opportunity for me to come and speak with you, I would love to. Thank you.
Thank you. Have a good day. All right. Our next candidate is running for North Carolina Commission of Agriculture, Jenna Wadsworth. She was born in Raleigh, North Carolina, but she grew up off a dirt road on her grandparents' farm in Johnston County, which raised hogs, cattle, chickens, corn, cotton, soybeans, and tobacco. Wadsworth made history a decade ago at the age of 21 by becoming the youngest woman who ever was elected to political office in North Carolina. For the first decade, she has served the people of Wake County as a soil and water conservation district supervisor. Jenna Wadsworth is running for North Carolina Commissioner of Agriculture on a platform of protecting our farm, family farmers, legalizing cannabis, combating climate change, advocating for farm workers, and expanding both broadband access and healthcare options in our rural communities. She is a graduate of both the North Carolina School of Science and Mathematics in Durham and North Carolina University. She's the co-founder of the progressive nonprofit New Leaders Council, North Carolina, as well as the managing partner of her small business. Last year, Wadsworth was appointed to the North Carolina Advisory Committee of the U.S. Global Leadership Coalition. She is currently tending 45 rows of fruits and vegetables, fruit trees and vines, as well as nut trees this season on her family farm. Her campaign is proudly endorsed by over 100 current and former elected officials, including former Commissioner of Agriculture, Britt Cobb, former North Carolina Court of Appeals, Judge Linda Stevens, Emily's List, the NCAFL-CIO, the North Carolina Association of Educators, the North Carolina Sierra Club, and others. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you Ms. Jenna Wadsworth for the North Carolina Commissioner of Agriculture.
Thank you so much. Hello, everybody. Hey, y'all. My name is Jenna Wadsworth, and I am running to be our next North Carolina Commissioner of Agriculture. I'd like to thank the ladies of Delta Sigma Theta for putting on this very informative event today. As Ms. Orr mentioned, I did grow up on a hog, cow, chicken, corn, cotton, tobacco, and soybean farm on a dirt road in Johnston County. So, and to this day, I still help manage the operations of the farm with my father. We rent the bulk of it. I do garden, as you heard. So running for this office, running to be our next Commissioner of Agriculture is deeply personal to me. I have looked around and seen that most farmers now are worse off than what they were 15 years ago. They're facing unprecedented farm stress. Every single time we turn around, we see that they are subject to additional trade wars and tariffs. All of those things have just been further exacerbated as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic, as we've seen double-digit drops on the international commodity market for the top 10 commodities being grown in North Carolina. And as a result of our farmers facing all of these unprecedented stresses and a lack of leadership in the industry, an industry that's largely been left in the past and which I hope to move into a more sustainable future with economically viable options for the people who are working so hard every day to put food on our tables and clothes on our backs. Farmers, unfortunately, have been going bankrupt at record rates here in the southeastern United States. And as a result of that, they are committing suicide. And I know that that's not bright and cheery to talk about on this beautiful day, but the reality is that it is a crisis in the agricultural community. The people with the institutional knowledge and know-how to produce our food are ending their life because they feel hopeless and helpless. And I believe that the person who is leading the agricultural industry, the biggest and most economically important industry in our state that brings in something like $92.7 billion annually to our state's economy and employs over 770,000 individuals from Murphy to Manio, I believe that the person who is leading our industry should be screaming from the rooftops about this crisis and doing everything they can to meaningfully address it, which is why I also talk about the importance of bridging the urban-rural divide as someone who has been elected in a county for the past decade, serving 1.2 million people, and as someone who grew up on a dirt road on my grandparents' family farm. I think I'm well positioned to do that, and that's why I talk about making sure that we're making meaningful investments in rural broadband access, because if you don't have the technology to compete in the global marketplace, you can't, you're gonna get left behind, and meaningful investments in rural healthcare. Because if you're not healthy, you can't be economically productive. And not just that, we have to destigmatize mental health care in our rural communities so that way those farmers never feel hopeless and helpless. I'm running to create new economic opportunities, including through the legalization of cannabis, which is not just an opportunity for our farmers and to build up our rural communities to restore our budgets that have been affected by COVID-19, but also to create social justice for communities of color who've been disproportionately criminalized and locked up on the basis of possession charges versus Caucasian users.
All right, thank you.
I hope to have your help doing it.
Thank you. We have a few, two questions for you. As you're aware, Duplin County's economic driver and mainstay is agriculture. What initiatives do you wish to implement as commissioner to enhance, protect, and maintain the safety and integrity our farm operations have to experience, including its workers?
That is a terrific question. So first of all, I would contend that my opponent has been bought and paid for by big corporate ag and out-of-state companies and corporations. A lot of them like Smithfield or Purdue or any of these companies, some of which you see a number of your farmers contracting with. But I would contend that they're having to sign contracts with these big out-of-state corporate producers because of a lack of leadership and economically viable opportunities for them to remain independent on their own. Because if their neighbor sells out and has to sign a deal with Smithfield, it's too hard for them to continue to produce hogs and realize that they're not going to be able to get the same money back as someone who is cutting corners or doing things without being worried about violating labor or environmental standards. And so I want to create opportunities for our small farmers to be independent, for them to succeed, for them to continue doing what they love to do, which is farm, for them to be good neighbors and good stewards of their natural environment. I've worked really hard in Wake County the last 10 years. I co-authored the county's agricultural economic development plan that gave farmers a viable pathway to market to allow them to continue doing what they love to do and keep their farmland, for a lot of them that's been in their family for generations. We have to create more local, resilient food systems. I think COVID-19 has shown us that the food system is broken. There's only 4 major corporations in this country that control 85% of all beef, 67% of pork, and about 50% of chicken. That's why you saw major disruptions on the grocery store shelves early on in the pandemic. So we have to support our local farmers. And by doing so, we can also build stronger local food systems and address food insecurity, which is a major problem in North Carolina, especially in Eastern North Carolina. Because just because you live next to a farm, as Representative Yuan Lewis Hawley says, That does not mean that you are not food insecure. Because everybody's growing one thing or producing one thing, you're not filling other needs and voids in your community. And despite the fact that North Carolina is one of the top 10 most agriculturally productive states in the nation, we're also one of the top 10 most food insecure. And 1 in 5 children in the state do not know where their next meal is coming from. I think that's absolutely criminal. And it doesn't mean if we're capable of producing that many agricultural products, we clearly have the ability to feed our people. We just have a values and priority problem.
Thank you. That's a good place to stop. Thank you so very much. I have one more question for you. What is your position on the legalization of cannabis? If you support legislation, explain why and how do you feel would benefit the citizens of North Carolina? If you do not support this legislation, explain why not.
So I support the legalization of cannabis, both medicinally and recreationally. The reality is it is already legal in 33 states plus DC. So it's not a question of if it's going to happen, it's a question of when it's going to happen. And when it does, I want to make sure that we have an equitable and just industry that actually works for farmers who call North Carolina home. I don't want big corporate interests coming in from out of state, buying up large swaths of land from those farmers who I alluded to earlier who are struggling because of a lack of leadership in this industry. Maybe that means there's an acreage allotment. That won't make everybody happy, but what that means is everybody gets a piece of the pie, especially our Black farmers, our female farmers, our urban farmers who have been hurting and who have been overlooked year after year after year after the current person who's in charge of this industry. And you know, diversification means we can address some food insecurity problems. We can make sure that we're feeding our community. We're taking care of soil health. That's a way to talk about environmental justice and climate justice. And you know, here's the thing. Besides for it already being legal elsewhere, this is a huge economic opportunity for our farmers, Democrats, Republicans, independents. They know that it is a way to allow them to continue doing what they love to do and keep their farm. Let's give them that opportunity to succeed. North Carolina is also a state that depends upon travel and tourism revenue. And as a result of COVID-19, people aren't traveling and touring. And that means that our small rural communities are really hurting. And so if we want to talk about giving them opportunities to fill back up their budgets, to invest in the things that matter, because I believe that our budget should reflect our values and priorities in society, make sure we're funding public education. I went to a Title I school before I went to NCSSM and then NC State. I know that education and strong public schools provide opportunity and equity when sometimes there isn't any other opportunity and equity in spaces. It's also a way to fund public transit. Look, senior citizens don't have access to Uber or anything else in rural communities. They need ways to be able to get out into their community. They need ways to be able to access medical care. There's so many things that we could fund with the additional money that we would bring in, the millions and millions of dollars in excise tax. But not just that, as I said earlier, it is an opportunity to begin to achieve true social justice for communities of color who've been disproportionately criminalized on the basis of possession charges, despite the fact that we know that white folks and Black folks are using cannabis at roughly the same rate. And the last thing that I will say is you cannot tell me that it's not a social justice and social equity issue, that right now there are Black men sitting in prison for doing something that's legal in a propensity of other states, and now they're more likely to contract COVID-19. Because
thank you so much. That's something we can leave and reflect on. Thanks for coming again, and you have a good day.
You too. Thank you so much.
Thank you. All right, our next candidate is running for North Carolina Commissioner of Insurance, Mr. Wayne Goodman.
Yes, may I proceed?
Yes, sir.
Well, thank you, sir.
Mr. Goodman, I just wanted to make sure that you were available.
Yes.
Okay, I can see you now. Let me just share a little bit about you first. You are a native of Hamlet, North Carolina, the son of a farmer and textile mill worker, elementary school teacher's assistant. Wayne rose from very humble beginnings to graduate first in your high school class, and then he graduated with honors as a Morehead Scholar and U.S. Senate Scholar from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. Later, he graduated from UNC School of Law and began his law practice in Richmond County, which is really your home. While representing injured workers and helping families and medical professionals with insurance claims and mediating and arbitrating disputes with insurance companies, voters elected him in 1996 as their state representative in the General Assembly. Over 8 years, you have fought for education, public education that is, economic development, public safety, clean water and air, election law improvements, voting rights, consumer protection, and a health care Bill of Rights for issues of importance to the medical and hospital communities. After concluding 2 terms as insurance commissioner with the endorsement of Governor Roy Cooper, you were elected chairman of the North Carolina Democratic Party, and you won your first term in 2017 with a vote of 92%. Just to mention a few of his many accomplishments, they include saving a record $2.4 billion for consumers with rate cuts, refunds, rebates, etc., proving the lowest average auto insurance rates in the United States for the first time, and $50 billion in refunds directed to $1 million drivers. Ordering $206 million in refunds directly to North Carolina consumers, something that has not happened since he was last in office. We'd like to share that you have made numerous accomplishments. Although we cannot name all of them, we'd like to mention that you were also married to former State Representative Melanie Wade Goodwin since 1998. She's a 2000 graduate from Campbell University School of Law. You have 2 children, Madison and Jackson, and your pet dog, Coco. They are members of Eatonton Street United Methodist Church. In sum, Mr. Goodwin is the most experienced candidate and has the strongest pro-consumer record in 2020's election for North Carolina Insurance Commissioner. I present Mr. Wayne Goodwin. Thanks for coming.
Thank you so very much, and my special thanks to the Duplin County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Thank you for hosting this candidates forum. My name is Wayne Goodwin, and I am from Richmond County, native of Hamlet. And as you heard in the introduction, I am the most qualified, most experienced, most successful candidate for North Carolina Insurance Commissioner in 2020. I have an unmatched record of fighting for you, and unlike my opponent in this race, I have never been a registered lobbyist for the insurance industry. We don't need a former registered insurance company lobbyist serving as insurance commissioner, and that's one of the huge differences. As you heard in the introduction, my record of fighting for consumers, fighting for North Carolinians, comes down to dollars and cents. A record savings of $2.4 billion by ordering rate cuts and refunds and rebates, by going head to head with the largest health insurance carrier. And when I did that, I discovered that there was $156 million that needed to go back to 215,000 families. And when I ordered that, guess who invited me to the White House? President Barack Obama invited me to the Oval Office and to talk about how I was able to do that. There was no other state insurance commissioner in the country who was able to do that. And I used not only state law, but also the Affordable Care Act, otherwise known as Obamacare, to help protect consumers. On my watch, we did have the lowest average car insurance premiums in the country. On my watch, I assessed the largest fine ever against an insurance company that had harmed not only consumers, but also small-town doctors' offices, and I ordered a fine of $23 million, the largest ever against an insurance company. You've already heard about the refunds of $206 million, which goes unmatched. In terms of the being qualified and experienced, I've spent 29 years of my professional career fighting for you, fighting against greedy insurance companies in our courtrooms, in the legislature, and also in the rate hearing rooms as our state insurance commissioner. I'm the only one in this race who understands the law. And if I don't know the answer, I know where to find the answer, because I worked in the Department of Insurance for 12 years as the Assistant General Counsel, as the Assistant Commissioner of Insurance, and then was elected in 2008 with President Obama and reelected with President Obama to a second term as our state insurance commissioner. We need someone with the experience of fighting for us, and that's who I am. Again, Wayne Goodwin, candidate for North Carolina Insurance Commissioner. I've been endorsed by the professional firefighters of North Carolina. I've been endorsed by the North Carolina AFL-CIO, our working families. I've been endorsed by the Equality NC, been endorsed by the North Carolina Association of Educators, and the list goes on and on and on. But the bottom line, it really comes down to this. who has a record of fighting for us. I come from rural North Carolina. I come from Eastern North Carolina. And I know through hard work in our public schools and doing the right thing always that I will be your strongest and best consumers champion. So I do ask for your vote. You can learn more by going to my website, waynegoodwin.org. And again, I do ask for your vote. I'm the Democratic candidate for North Carolina Insurance Commissioner running for a third non-consecutive term. I look forward to your questions. Again, Wayne Goodwin for Insurance Commissioner.
Thank you so very much. We do have some questions for the insurance commissioner. How do you plan to specialize or to provide specialized counseling to citizens eligible for medicine in the midst of this COVID-19?
Well, several things. One is that if returned to this office, I narrowly lost for a third term during the Trump wave. It was the third closest race statewide, 0.4% difference. If returned back to this office for a full third term, I'm going to be able to reverse a lot of the damage that's been done. And some of the damage was that when I was last commissioner, the Republican legislature, with the support of the current Republican insurance commissioner, required me to return $74 million back to the federal government that was supposed to be used to educate consumers, educate families on how to best access health insurance coverage and to take it into account every opportunity of the consumer protections that the Affordable Care Act provides. That's one of the things. Second is that as insurance commissioner, I would require the insurance industry, again, to do everything they can to provide cost-free coverage and testing for every family so that we can help detect where there's COVID-19 and help provide the medical help for families that are impacted by COVID-19. The bottom line is we need an insurance commissioner who supports the Affordable Care Act and who will improve upon the Affordable Care Act. The other candidate in this race, the Republican candidate, the other candidate, wants to eliminate the Affordable Care Act, wants to eliminate the consumer protections that we have that President Obama helped us receive, and wants to eliminate the protections for pre-existing conditions. And if you have COVID-19, my friends, you have a major pre-existing condition that you won't be able to have covered if Donald Trump and the current Republican commissioner have their way.
He's muted.
I will fight to improve the Affordable Care Act, and I ask again for your vote, Wayne Goodwin for North Carolina Insurance Commissioner.
All right, your second question is, how do you plan to provide additional relief on continued insurance coverage to those negatively affected by the pandemic?
Well, we need more competition. If reelected to a third term, if returned to a third non-consecutive term, one of the first things that I will seek and request the legislature to work with me on is to re-implement a provision of the Affordable Care Act. And whether or not, I mean, I hope the Affordable Care Act is still around, but to have what's called a state-based exchange. When we had the early stages of a state-based exchange, when I was last commissioner, we had three other insurance companies that were in the pipeline to be approved to compete with Blue Cross Blue Shield. And by having that competition, it will provide greater coverage, greater benefits, and more opportunities for folks to have coverage, whether they are getting that through the private sector or whether they're receiving that through the Affordable Care Act. It is important that we have access to affordable health care. And that's another reason, another difference between me and the Republican candidate. As the Democratic candidate, I have always been for expanding Medicaid. And even though the insurance commissioner doesn't directly regulate Medicaid, the fact that 650,000 North Carolinians are uninsured right now, they can't have Medicaid or private sector coverage, that causes all of our rates to go up and causes healthcare costs to go up. So I'm the candidate for Medicaid expansion. I'm the candidate for greater competition. I'm the candidate for lower and fairer prices for healthcare and for health insurance. I ask for your vote, Wayne Goodwin for North Carolina Insurance Commissioner.
Thank you so much for coming, and you have a good day.
Thank you, and God bless.
Same to you. Our next candidate is Jessica H. Holmes.
It's just Jessica Holmes.
Oh, so Jessica Holmes. Thank you. In November 2014, Jessica Holmes became the youngest commissioner ever elected in Wake County's history. She has since become the youngest person to ever or serve as chair, the gavel, let me say that for you, and service chair after being unanimously elected by her colleagues to lead the board for 2 terms. She received her Bachelor of Arts and Juris Doctor from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill and the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill School of Law. She's licensed to practice law in North Carolina and New York. She spent the majority of her legal career focusing on labor and employment law and workers' rights. She is an attorney, county commissioner, and adjunct professor at the North Carolina State University Department of Social Work in the College of Humanities and Social Sciences. As a county commissioner, she has successfully led the implementation of several worker-friendly policies, including paid parental leave, paid family illness leave, and a fair chance hiring ordinance, as well as voting for a living wage for all county employees. She has advised workers across North Carolina in labor and employment matters, has worked alongside the business community to create job opportunities, and has served as a member of the board of directors of the Raleigh Chamber of Commerce. She has a strong sense of community and is the immediate past chair of the North Carolina Foundation for Public School Children and serves on the board of directors of Wake County Smart Start. She has formerly served on the board of directors of Interact of Wake County and a Helping Hand Incorporated. Commissioner Holmes is running statewide for North Carolina Commissioner of Labor to uplift the status and respect of working families in North Carolina. She has made history by earning the Democratic nomination for the office and would be the first woman of color to ever serve on the North Carolina Council of State. Jessica Holmes for Commissioner of Labor.
Thank you so much for allowing me the opportunity to be here with you all this afternoon. I'll start by saying a special greeting to the Duplin County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. I'm a very proud member of Alpha Kappa Alpha Sorority Incorporated, a nonprofit organization as well. One of the most important things not mentioned in my bio is that I was born and raised in Maple Hill, near Duplin County, and understand firsthand some of the challenges that have been referenced earlier as it relates to our agricultural community, as it relates to people working in meat processing plants in Eastern North Carolina. That's just not, only my community and my hometown, but that's my family. So forgive me for the photo. I'm in transition, but it was so very important for me to be here with you all because of what Eastern North Carolina means to me as a first-generation college student who am standing before you as a graduate from UNC at Chapel Hill and UNC at Chapel Hill School of Law, and as a labor commissioner candidate because of me being the person that Eastern North Carolina made me. Most people know of the labor commissioner position because of the photo in elevators. Yes, for the first time, there will be a photo in our elevators that looks much like most of North Carolina. But what the position is really about is the safety, health, and general well-being of North Carolina's workers. As was noted, I'm an attorney. I have represented workers all across the state of North Carolina. As was also noted, in 2014, I made history by becoming the youngest commissioner ever elected in Wake County's history, representing over 1 million people and supporting an over $1 billion budget and leading on policies such as paid leave, second chances, addressing recidivism, and paid family illness leave. I would also ask that you join me and that you help me make history again in 2020 by becoming the first woman of color to ever serve on North Carolina's Council of State. And in her absence, your fellow member of Delta Sigma Theta Representative Yvonne Holly as well. But that's not why you should vote for either one of us. I ask for your vote because I, as Jessica Holmes, am the most qualified labor commissioner candidate on your ballot, regardless of party affiliation. I am Jessica Holmes. I am one of you. And I ask that you vote for me in November.
Thank you so very much. We will now begin the questioning. First question for you, Jessica, is how do you plan to promote the safety, health, and well-being of North Carolina workers during the pandemic and following the pandemic?
Thank you for that question. I'll know that I said vote for me in November, but in fact, I hope that most of you will vote for me in October because North Carolina, we're the first state to actually start voting with absentee ballots. That said, there are many ways to keep our workers safe, and the first one being understanding that we have to make decisions based on science and data, which is something that Governor Cooper has been doing and leading based on science and data, along with Secretary Mandy Cohen. We cannot take CDC guidelines as optional. We must make sure that workers have access to personal protective equipment, that they're able to socially distance, and that we do things like provide plexiglass in between workers where they can't socially distance. So the key for me is ensuring safe and healthy work environments by following science and following the data, and making sure that we don't play partisan politics with the health, safety, and well-being of our workers.
Very good. If elected, what will be your first focus as Commissioner of Labor?
In the greatest public health crisis of our lifetimes, ensuring safety as it relates to COVID-19 is the best way that we are going to get our economy up and running as quickly as possible. Everybody wants to reopen immediately, but we have to do so safely and thoughtfully. So one of the things that I do know is my mom worked in a meat processing plant in Eastern North Carolina, along with many of my family members. Some of the same meat processing plants where hundreds of employees became infected with COVID-19. We have got to make sure that as quickly as we want to open, that we do so thoughtfully and that we don't have workers jeopardizing their lives. Many workers, of whom I'll note, don't even make a living wage. We need to make sure that we provide what workers need to be safe. We also need to make sure that we provide them with a living wage. And I also believe in Medicaid expansion, because that will help more workers across our state be able to access better and quality health care. It is a shame that right now in a global pandemic that we in North Carolina are talking about closing hospitals.
All right. Thank you so very much. We will take all of that in consideration. And again, thanks for coming, and you have a good day.
It's been my absolute pleasure. Thank you.
Next on our list is candidate Secretary of State for North Carolina, Secretary of State, Elaine Marshall. Is she available?
Yes, I am. I'm right here.
Hi, how are you doing this afternoon? Thanks for coming.
Very well. Thank you very much.
We would like for you to go on and take a few minutes to share anything that you would like to share about yourselves and anything that you would like the North Carolinians to know about your plans for them in the future. Thank you.
Okay. You want me just to go at this point?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thank you very much. I do want to thank the organizers from Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for putting this together. I know it takes a lot of hard work. So thank you all very, very much. I do appreciate it. I am Elaine Marshall, and I am the incumbent Secretary of State. I am a farm girl from Maryland who came to North Carolina about as quickly as I could right after college. I went to the public schools of Maryland and graduated from the University of Maryland. I spent my summers working for the Maryland 4-H Foundation doing camping. 4-H was incredibly important to me. I'm first generation college. My family had little experience or expectation in my part of the world for further education, but because public school teachers believed in me and a 4-H agent showed me opportunities, I was able to move along life, and I wouldn't be where I am today but for 4-H. I came to North Carolina. I taught public school in neighboring Lenoir County. I taught at North Lenoir, and I also taught at Lenoir Community College. So I've got a lot of good friends in Duplin County and spent a lot of the early part of my time in North Carolina in that Lenoir-Duplin County area. But at 10 years, I decided, 10 years from undergraduate school, I kind of needed a new me. And that was the point when I went to law school. Campbell opened up a new law school a few years before, and I thought I was interested in politics. I was looking for a career change from home economics, and that's when I attended law school. I worked with a lot of your folks in Duplin County. I became basically a country girl lawyer, practicing law similar to the kinds of things that Duplin County people do. A little bit of this, a little bit of that, a lot of family law, personal injury, bankruptcy, criminal law. I did a lot of domestic violence work and protecting families. But I got more and more interested in politics and then got elected to the North Carolina Senate and served there, where the News and Observer called me Rookie of the Year. I was flattered with that. It also said that when I spoke, people listened because I didn't talk all the time unless I had something to say. So my life has been full of public service. My parents are farmers, very active in the community, and I saw lessons of public service. In 1996, I became Secretary of State due to the help of a lot of people. That made me the first woman to be elected to executive statewide office in North Carolina. It was quite an honor to be serving as Secretary of State since then. I've truly transformed the office. We believe in transparency. We believe in open records. Our mission is to support economic development, to support the facilitation of capital, and some consumer protection. I have some law enforcement authority in some very narrow areas. Going forward, my objectives will be to maintain the highest level of cybersecurity and still allow transparency of our records for people that save money every day by using those. I'm also going to concentrate more on consumer protection and e-commerce, which involves broadband, which is seriously important to Duplin County. So I think I'm getting close to my 3 minutes, but if we're going to have economic viability in the rural areas, not only is it good for education, good for telemedicine, but we've got to have broadband. We can't grow our companies out of the rural area, whether they're agriculture companies or others, without broadband. And we can't attract industries that want to grow within North Carolina or come to North Carolina without good broadband. So I'm going to be working on all of those kinds of things if I'm fortunate enough to be elected. And I certainly seek and ask everyone's help in getting reelected. So it's Elaine Marshall for Secretary of State.
Thank you very much. We have a few questions to ask of you. The first one is, what protocols have you initiated in Wake County to ensure that citizens continue to have access to necessary information on COVID-19? Okay.
Well, our protocols are the same for everything that we do. We try to put everything up on the internet so that what's public record is available. Transparency and open communication is absolutely the best. Our COVID policies, we've had to change the way we do business. We've always encouraged a great deal of electronic commerce and filings so that there's not a geographical penalty for folks all around North Carolina. But that gets us back to the broadband issue. You've got to have good connections to be able to access that. But we've had to get as many employees teleworking. We had to communicate. We've put up videos. We've put up training videos about changes in the law that COVID has affected, not just limited to Wake County, but all throughout the state. We jumped into action to make some of our business services work during this time when people everywhere need to be protecting themselves. And as I say, we've done videos, we've done course modifications for trainings that we teach out there on a regular basis. So I'm so proud of the Secretary of State employees, the way we've jumped into action to communicate in very interesting new ways. It's brought out the best in us, not in me, but in the employees, with their great ideas about how we can continue to serve in this time of COVID. And we were ill-equipped to go to homebound work if somebody would have said, you ought to have 50 or 75 laptops sitting on a shelf when New Year's Eve came January 2020, I'd have told them they were nuts. But we could have used that, and we still don't have enough equipment, but we're working on it.
I'm sorry, that was my error. I should have said in the wake of the COVID-19. So we know it's more than just Wake County. You serve the whole state, don't you?
Right, right. I think my answer covered the whole state too.
Thank you, I appreciate it.
Yeah.
All right, the next question that I have is, as Secretary of State, what do you see as the single most important change you would implement to improve your agency's efficiency?
Well, it's all tied up with technology. We have received awards from how we've transformed the office, how citizens and government ought to interact, and they've been many years in coming. We have innovated and created the first in the country of electronic notary that's been recognized by the banking, even Freddie and Fannie, of how to move forward for greater efficiencies for everybody, not just the government side of, say, a loan closing, but the banking side of a loan closing, the consumer side of a loan closing. So that's a triple win for everybody. But we have constantly upped our game, which is what then again leads me to the lack of broadbands, because upping our game for just a few select people is not where we need to be. We need to have this available for everybody across North Carolina so that we're all in this era that we're in, competitive, whether you're competing with your neighbors in Wayne County from Duplin County, or if you're competing with your neighbors in England or China or somewhere else from Duplin County. We want North Carolina to be on the highest level playing field as possible to be economically competitive.
Very good. We thank you for coming and sharing your plans for the future, and we are glad that you're here and wish you well.
Thank you very, very much. Have a great afternoon.
All right. Next we have is Ronnie Chatterjee.
Yeah, I'm here. Thank you so much.
Is that pronounced correctly?
You did great. It's awesome. Thank you.
All right. Thank you so very much. Ronnie Chatterjee is an economist and tenured professor at Duplin University's Fuqua School of Business and Sanford School of Public Policy. His expertise is in business strategy, entrepreneurship, socially responsible investing, and the intersection of business and public policy. He served as a senior economist on the White House Council of Economic Advisors during the Obama administration. He worked on policies to strengthen our national economy, which resulted in tax cuts for small businesses, greater access to capital for entrepreneurs, and investments in economic development in North Carolina and across the nation. He has advised multiple presidential and U.S. Senate campaigns on economic policy. He is an appointed member of Governor Roy Cooper's Entrepreneurial Council. He also serves on the North Carolina First Commission, a bipartisan group tasked with developing a long-term strategy to guide transportation investments in our state. He has proven a record of turning innovative ideas into smart economic policy and has helped family-owned businesses in North Carolina, as well as Fortune 500 companies grow and thrive. He was previously a term member of the Council on Foreign Relations and worked as a financial analyst. He served as a fellow for the Center for American Progress. He was also a visiting professor at Harvard Business School. Chatterjee received a Rising Star Award from the Aspen Institute and the Erwin Marion Kaufman Prize Medal for distinguished research in entrepreneurship. He was recognized as a top 40, under 40 business school professor by poets and quants and has received multiple teaching awards. He received his PhD from UC Berkeley and his undergraduate degree in economics from Cornell University. Ronnie and his wife, Neely, are proud residents of Durham, where they are raising their 3 children. Welcome.
Thank you so much. I feel like I should just drop the mic after the introduction. Thank you for that intro. Although I'm really humbled to be joined by all the fantastic candidates who came before me and will come after me. And I have to say, I want to thank the alumni chapter of Delta Sigma Theta in Duplin County. And also, Jacqueline Swinson, I mean, you have the most impressive resume on the whole group here. When I heard about your public service and everything you've done, both in our military and in our schools and all the work you continue to do, you're the reason why folks like us try to serve to make North Carolina better. And I hope that regardless of the outcomes of these elections, we can all be partners in that. So I was just really impressed and inspired hearing about your background. And I want to take some of my time to tell you that. I will still want to need 3 minutes though, because those 3 kids you mentioned are out there watching Disney Plus, and that streaming service can only keep them, occupied for too long. Okay, so I'll go real quick and take your comments and questions. The first thing is pretty obvious. I'm not a typical candidate for public office. I'm a nerd, not a politician, as you heard from her very generous intro. But here's the thing, the North Carolina State Treasurer's Office is a perfect place for a nerd. You manage $100 billion on behalf of the people of North Carolina. You manage the state health plan for over 700,000 of our state employees, and you decide how our state and local bonds are invested across North Carolina. My folks were public educators, just like Ms. Swinson, and they grew up with me, and I grew up having them on a defined benefit pension plan and a state health plan. And that was the best little insurance plan in my small town. I knew because my parents could rely on a fixed income during retirement, and because they had healthcare coverage, they could make investments in me and my sisters. It is the only reason that we were able to go to college, that they were able to have a mortgage on a home, and everything I have today is because my parents were both public educators. So my job, with the power and privilege that their sacrifice gave me, is to give back, to put what I know to work for North Carolina. So that's why an unconventional candidate with like a 17-letter last name, depending on how you count there, is running for office in North Carolina. And here's why we won the primary with 410,000 votes. And here's why, amazingly, we are tied in the polls with a 20-year politician who's been around forever, and we're going to be the next state treasurer. People are looking for something different. You've seen this all through this political cycle in 2020. People are just sick and tired of the same old politics and the same old people. And it's time to bring fresh, new, innovative ideas into state government. When I get to Raleigh, I'm going to make sure that we start managing our pension fund responsibly again. When it comes to the $100 billion we had, our current treasurer has mismanaged the funds and lost us about $3 to $4 billion depending on the day. It's like bending over to pick up a nickel and 20 bucks falls out of your pocket every day. My education has taught me one thing. It's that I'm not the smartest guy in the room. I need to build a team of diverse professionals around me, the same way the Secretary of State Marshall and so many of our other Council of State members have. And when I get the best possible diverse team around me, we will make better decisions together for the state of North Carolina. The attitude we have now is an elitist one, where one person gets to make all the decisions. And I don't think that's the great way to manage our Department of State Treasurer. On the state health plan, my priority is to keep rural hospitals open. Jessica Holmes talked about it eloquently before me, and I'll just add to what she said and say, yes, we must expand Medicaid, and you should ask every candidate who comes before you what their position is on the Affordable Care Act and Medicaid expansion. Like my other Council of State candidates, I support Medicaid expansion. I supported it when I worked for President Obama in the White House at the Council of Economic Advisors. I supported it when I worked on his campaign in 2008 and 2012, and I've supported it when he endorsed me on August 3rd, 2020, one of only 2 state treasurers in the entire country to get President Obama's endorsement. We got to start fighting for these things in North Carolina, because otherwise they'll be taken away. And I will be a state treasurer who pushes for Medicaid expansion. Finally, we need to invest in North Carolina, but particularly Eastern North Carolina. Every visit I've made to Eastern North Carolina, people are concerned that the share of infrastructure investments are going to other places. And they're wondering why we're not investing in connecting people and ideas in Eastern North Carolina.
Thank you so very much. I have 2 questions for you.
Sure.
As a North Carolina treasurer, do you support the increase in the minimum wage to $15? And what are your reasons for your response?
Yes, I do. And my reasons is I think it's good for the economy. If people can't make a wage that they can live on with their families, how are they going to be consumers? How are they going to be productive citizens? How are we going to grow every aspect of our economy? And so I'm an economist, and I've seen the studies on what the impact of the increase in the minimum wage can do, and I support it. And I'm happy, by the way, to be your economics nerd in Raleigh to go explain to other people who think they have the economic argument about why it's not the right thing. You know, I see a lot of our legislators in Raleigh talking like they know economics. It seems to me a lot of them sat in there for Econ 101, but they didn't come back for 102. So I'm going to have to explain why I think the minimum wage is good for North Carolina workers. I support it. I'm proud, of course, to have the support of working families all across North Carolina, AFL-CIO, CWA, and also the North Carolina Association of Educators. And I think one of the reasons is my consistent stand on the minimum wage and other working families issues.
Very good. The next question is, what are your budget priorities and how will they impact women and families in rural communities across our state?
So when it comes to my own priorities in the Department of State Treasurer, one of the things I want to do first is take care of our employees in the state workforce. The Department of State Treasurer, along with our Department of Labor, both run by Republicans, were the only agencies in state government not to provide paid family leave to their employees. That's an important thing we can do for the 400 people at the Department of State Treasurer. But there's more that we can do for families, particularly women and their families in Eastern North Carolina. One of the key things we can do is invest in school construction and broadband infrastructure. I got 3 kids, and I know how difficult it is, even with 2 parents trying their best to make sure they get access to their lessons, to make sure they have the hardware and software to keep up with school. And when they do return to school, if your school building is crumbling, if it doesn't have clean water, if the gym is falling apart, if all the other pieces of the school are crumbling without any attention, it's impossible to learn. And so the most important thing I can do is make sure that those investments in the construction of brand new schools and also the availability of broadband infrastructure and the requisite hardware and software to help kids learn, that's going to help families all across North Carolina, including Eastern North Carolina. And Medicaid expansion is also a big piece. A lot of the families you mentioned would be covered by Medicaid if we expanded it. Over 600,000 people in North Carolina. And to me, that's a no-brainer, and it's something I've been talking about since the beginning of the campaign. I think that would be the other way I could be really helping families out there.
Thank you so much. We'll take all of that in consideration. And again, we're glad that you came to be with us today, and you have a good day.
Thank you. Thank you for considering to support me. I really appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay. All right. The next candidate is for running for North Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice, Shari Beasley. Is she available?
She is available. Hello, how is everybody?
Fine. How are you today?
I'm well, thank you.
Again, thanks for coming. I'd like to share a little bit about Shari Beasley. She is the first African-American woman in the North Carolina Supreme Court's 200-year history to serve as Chief Justice. She's been on the state's highest court since 2012 and was named Chief Justice in March of 2019. Justice Beasley also served 4 years as an associate judge on the North Carolina Court of Appeals and was a district court judge for a decade in the 12th Judicial District in Cumberland County. Before beginning her judicial career in 1999, Beasley was a public defender in Cumberland County. Shari Beasley believes passionately in having an independent judicial branch that administers justice fairly, and she also knows the courts can play an important role in helping people better their lives. That's why she's working to engage schools, law enforcement, faith leaders, and other stakeholders in discussions about important community issues, as well as implementing online services and increasing the number of specialty courts. She's also working to make the judicial system more accessible to all North Carolinians. She is a graduate of the University of Tennessee College of Law and Douglas's College of Rutgers University. Chief Justice Beasley earned a Master of Law, which is the LLM, in Judicial Studies from Duke University School of Law. She's held several leadership roles in the American Bar Association and the North Carolina Bar Association, and has received a number of awards for her leadership and public service. Shari Beasley and her husband, Curtis Owens, are the proud parents of twin sons, Thomas and Matthew, who are now college students. They're members of First Baptist Church in Raleigh. I present Sherry Beasley for North Carolina Court Chief Justice. Welcome.
Thank you so very much. And I want to thank the chapter of
Going in now.
this court. I am very thankful to be a part of this. I am Sherry Beasley, and I'm serving as the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of North Carolina. And I have served as a judge now for 20 years. I am the second longest serving judge on the Supreme Court, with the first being Justice Michael Morgan. As the Chief Justice, I lead the Supreme Court of North Carolina. There are 7 justices on the court. I am proud to tell you that we are the most diverse Supreme Court in the nation, with 3 African Americans, 3 women, and the first Jewish member in the court's 200-year history. And I also lead the entire judicial branch of government. So in the very same way that you have judges in your area, and district attorney and clerk of court and magistrates and all of that, the Chief Justice leads all of the courts all over the state. And there are more than 300 court facilities that I lead. I also oversee the budget for the judicial branch of government. Especially during this pandemic, it's been really important. Actually, when I became the Chief Justice a year and a half ago, it was important that there were lots of communities in Eastern North Carolina which were recovering from Hurricane Florence. And so in the very same way that I am issuing orders around the pandemic now, there were catastrophic conditions because there were courthouse closures in many of the Eastern County courts. Of course, court employees and their families were still trying to recover, and some of them still are trying to recover at that period of time. And so it's been important for me to take emergency measures, actually, since I've been the Chief Justice. And so during this pandemic, it's been my responsibility to ensure that we were keeping our court employees and officials and the public safe in using our court facilities, while balancing that with allowing the public to also be able to have their court cases heard. I was the first Chief Justice in the nation to reduce the number of cases that we were hearing in our courts. And certainly at this point, as we're knowing more about this pandemic, we have increased the number of cases that we're hearing across the state, but we're still not at the place where we were before this pandemic. It's been to be safe. I have halted jury trials across the state because we have the data that shows us that people are reluctant to come in for jury duty, especially those who are immunocompromised. Take those plans so that can be safely going on in the middle of a pandemic. All of that is compounded by heightened racial tensions all over North Carolina. Ahmaud Arbery and Breonna with us, and even more their deaths. There were so many other issues around justice and injustices in North Carolina and across the nation. In the nation to speak out, to issue a statement acknowledging that there are indeed racial and gender disparities in our courts, that we must take action. And certainly we had been taking action before those unfortunate deaths, but it was an important time to really be able to have a more extensive conversation about it. My public and there are problems, and we know in court systems across the nation and the state. Justice.
I don't know, we may be having,
Serious.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, Ms. Beasley?
I can hear you.
Okay.
But I didn't, did you call time?
Yes, I think you were like going in and out, so there were some intermittent issues, but we heard the majority of what you were saying though. But I have some questions for you. Are you able to hear me? Yes, ma'am. Very good.
I can hear you.
I know you alluded to COVID-19 because that is one of the basic issues facing us today. So in this era of COVID-19, how have you balanced the need for the courts to be open and accessible to the public with the need for health and safety measures to protect those attending court, as well as courthouse staff and other personnel?
That's exactly what it's been. It has been a balance. I never closed the courthouses across the state. I did greatly reduce the number of cases that we were hearing initially. I knew it was important for us to do our part in reducing the spread of COVID-19. On any given day in any courthouse across the state, we could have hundreds of people scheduled for a court appearance. And it was dangerous to do it that way. And so it has indeed been a balance. We know that we have had court officials and employees who have contracted COVID-19. We've had courthouses across the state that have temporarily closed for sanitation. And so it has indeed been a balance around making sure we can hear as many cases as possible, in conjunction with the fact that we want to keep public as safe as possible. So it's in fact been a balance.
All righty. The next question.
Heard the most
All
Yes,
right,
ma'am.
I'm waiting for you to complete your sentence. I'm sorry.
Yes, ma'am. That's okay. Go ahead.
Did you have something to add? Because you still have a few more.
No, ma'am.
All right.
That's okay, ma'am.
The second question is, as you know, public trust in the legal system is essential, and everyone before the court should be treated fairly. In light of recent events involving the killing of minority women and men at the hands of law enforcement, the public's trust is waning. What have you done and what will you do to ensure that those in the justice system treat victims and defendants fairly and equally?
That's really been my whole goal the whole time that I have served as Chief Justice, is to really instill the trust and confidence in our courts. We know, because a study was commissioned before I became the Chief Justice, that most North Carolinians do not have trust and confidence in our courts. And so we are committed, creating a commission. We know that the governor has created a task force on criminal justice, but the courts will create a commission, and you'll hear more about that soon. To make sure that court actors, judges, district attorneys, clerks of court, and other folks understand that it is important for us to not just have difficult and constructive conversations around race and gender disparities, but to determine how to change outcomes so that they are indeed fair and equal. So, be mindful that there are host of programs that I've started. I'll tell you about one, Faith and Justice. We're training clergy across the state to identify legal issues and allowing also places of worship to hold legal clinics. Lawyers are volunteering their time, and we would certainly love to have lawyers and clergy and churches in your area to be a part of our statewide Faith and Justice Alliance, which will meet on Thursday of this week. It's a wonderful way for people to be engaged in justice. And the other thing too is, as we talk about justice, your question referenced criminal justice, but there's a whole justice system that we have to make sure is just. There are adoptions, family law, evictions, juvenile justice. So we're working on all of that to make sure that we are being just in our decisions. People don't want to come to court and believe that the justice that they are receiving is actually unjust. And the Chief Justice really must lead that effort to determine that judges and everybody else in our system is fair and not making decisions based on people's race, gender, and the other isms in this world.
Thank you so much. And I wanted to make sure I add that you are a candidate for North Carolina Supreme Court Chief Justice, Seat 1. Thank you so much.
Yes, ma'am.
Thanks for coming, and you have a good day.
Thank you. Thanks so much. You too.
All right. Judge Lucy Inman in the building.
Oh, I'm here. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm doing just fine.
Thank you. I would like for our audience to learn a little bit more about you. You are Judge Lucy Inman, and you are running for North Carolina Supreme Court Associate Justice, Seat 2. Lucy Inman is a judge in the North Carolina Court of Appeals and a candidate for the open seat on the North Carolina Supreme Court. Judge Inman was elected statewide to the Court of Appeals in 2014. Judge Inman's first career was as a newspaper reporter. While covering court proceedings, she was inspired to participate in the justice system. She earned her law degree from the UNC School of Law, and you went on to practice civil litigation for 18 years, first in Los Angeles and then back in Raleigh. In 2010, Judge Inman was appointed to serve as a special Superior Court judge. She served in that role for 4 years, presiding in hearings and jury trials across North Carolina. Since her election to the Court of Appeals, Judge Inman has authored over 400 appellate decisions in a wide variety of cases. We're glad to have you again, and go on and share something about anything else that you would like to share about our future for North Carolina.
Ms. Thorne, thank you so much for that kind introduction, and thank you to the Duplin County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority, Inc. for inviting me to this forum. I humbly ask for your votes, and I look forward to answering your questions. My name is Lucy Inman, and as Ms. Thorne indicated, I've served as a judge in North Carolina for 10 years, first as a trial judge and now on the Court of Appeals. I'm running for the Supreme Court to preserve the rule of law and to protect our justice system from partisan politics and ideology, and to pursue equal justice for all. I've been endorsed by 3 former North Carolina Chief Justices, including Chief Justice Henry Fry, as well as dozens of other retired and former trial and appellate judges and organizations including the AFL-CIO, the North Carolina Association of Educators, the Sierra Club, the National Association of Social Workers, the state's 2 largest nonpartisan law enforcement organizations, and Equality NC. I've also been endorsed by the Durham Committee for the Affairs of Black People, the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Black Political Caucus, and other county and regional organizations whose members understand what is at stake in our judicial elections. I grew up in Raleigh, and I was indeed privileged to have a job as a newspaper reporter after college. That is what took me to a court for the first time. I learned there in court that few people are there because they're having a good day. They're victims, or they're answering a criminal charge, or they're a family member of someone who's involved in the justice system. And I eventually learned that everyone in court, no matter what side they're on, had the same goal, and that was to be heard and to be treated with fairness and respect by the judge. That truth has endured for me when I was a trial judge in the Superior Court, and it does at the Court of Appeals, and I know it will endure at the Supreme Court. While practicing law for 18 years, I represented people from all walks of life, and I know what it feels like to walk into a courtroom and hope the judge will be fair. As a Superior Court judge, my motto was have gavel, will travel, because I presided in trials and hearings in matters ranging from impaired driving to first-degree murder to employment lawsuits and environmental claims all across the state, including right there in Duplin County. In 2014, I was elected to the Court of Appeals, and our caseload is heavy, and most of our decisions are the last word for the parties. The Supreme Court hears fewer cases, and for the most part, they present the most difficult legal questions that reach our courts. So it's an awesome responsibility that I do not take lightly. Appellate judges don't hear the testimony of witnesses or impaneled juries or impose sentences or fines or costs, but we do have to treat people fairly and with respect. We do that by deciding cases impartially, and to show that we've done it impartially, we recite the facts and the law which determine the decision. We follow our state and federal constitution and precedent. We leave politics at the courthouse steps, and we write decisions that regular people can understand, because the better the public can understand these decisions, the greater ability the public has to decide whether the court's decisions make sense.
Thank you.
So judges can never
right there.
Thank you. Sorry if I went over and didn't hear you.
Hey, we realize your passion. I have a few questions. The first one is, in your opinion, what is the single most change that needs to be made to our justice system?
The single most change that needs to be made to our justice system, for a variety of reasons, is funding. We don't have the funding in our justice system to make it accessible to all the people. You've heard Chief Justice Beasley talk about the civil unrest and the systemic racism in our society. In order to fund a commission to go forward, in order to do that work, it's going to take some funding. In order to make specialty courts like substance abuse courts and veterans courts and mental health courts available to people all over the state, not just in the big cities, it's going to take money. In order to provide juvenile court rehabilitation services, it's going to take money. You might think that because the costs and the fees and the fines are so high in court that the court system has plenty of money. We do not. All of that money goes to the general fund, and the court system gets, at this time, about 2.3% of the funding from our legislature. We must have more funding in order to make the courts available to everyone. 50% of the people who appear in our courts have no lawyer. They can't afford one. That is a problem, and that rests with the third branch of government, but it rests with the legislature to provide the funding.
Very good. Thank you. The second question is, what refunds do you support to increase access to justice for all? What reforms do you support to increase access to justice for all? What can you do as a judge to ensure the efforts at reform are achieved?
Well, one of the reforms that's needed that is beyond the scope of the judicial branch is funding for broadband everywhere in North Carolina. I know that in many rural areas, and I think in Duplin County, there are areas where even if assuming someone has a computer, they can't get on the internet. They've got to go to McDonald's to get on the internet. Chief Justice Beasley recently unrolled a great reform which makes it possible for people to pay traffic tickets online, for people to check on the status of their cases online, for people to take care of all sorts of business without going to the courthouse. But if you have no internet, that doesn't work for you. So we need broadband internet. Within the judicial system, if we had the funding to provide, for one thing, more staff in our public defender's offices and more staff in our prosecutors' offices, both on the prosecution side and the defense side, when you have people who are overworked, underpaid, and simply handling more cases than anyone should be expected to, that is when things fall through the cracks. That is when justice can be denied. Other reforms include what the legislature can do in terms of our laws on bail and fines and fees. But what I did as a trial court judge was make sure that any defendant before me was only imposed a fee or a cost if I was satisfied that that person was going to be able to pay that back. I often converted those fees and fines to civil judgments so that the person would not lose their driver's license if they couldn't pay.
Thank you. Thank you so very much. I realize that Judge Inman, we are aware that Judge Mark Davis is unavailable to be with us here today, and that you will be providing some words of endorsement on his behalf. You're welcome to bring forth those greetings at this moment.
That is great. And did you receive, if you did not receive his biography, I'll start with that.
Could you please?
Yes, I will.
I just want to say one thing, that Mark Davis is a candidate for North Carolina Supreme Court Associate Judge, seat 4. Is that correct?
That is correct.
And you're representing him today. Thank you.
Yes, I am representing him today. Well, first, I'll just tell you, Justice Mark Davis is a lifelong resident of North Carolina. He was born in Jacksonville. I think he graduated from high school in Fayetteville, and he received his undergraduate degree in political science from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He received his law degree from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill School of Law and served on the law review there. Mark Davis practiced law in the trial and appellate courts for more than 20 years. He practiced with a large law firm in Raleigh and then worked as a special deputy attorney general in the North Carolina Department of Justice, handling some of the most challenging legal cases that our state had to face at that time. He also served for 2 years as general legal counsel to the governor. He argued hundreds of cases before the trial and appellate courts, both the Court of Appeals and the North Carolina Supreme Court. He served his 6 years as the judge on the North Carolina Court of Appeals, and I served there with him until his appointment last year. And he's been an associate justice on the North Carolina Supreme Court since Governor Roy Cooper appointed him last March. He is the first Jewish member in the history of our Supreme Court. He is a respected legal scholar, and in 2019, he authored a book on the North Carolina Supreme Court called A Warren Court of Our Own, and that was about the court when Chief Justice Exum was leading the court. That was a wonderful time. Future Chief Justice Fry was there at the same time, as well as future Chief Justice Burley Mitchell. And I believe in retrospect, when we look back in 20 years, we're going to be talking about the Beasley Court. Justice Davis lives in Raleigh. He and his wife, Marcia, have 3 children. And he is not only the most qualified candidate in his race, he's the only candidate in his race who served as a judge before. He has been endorsed by most of the same chief justices and judges who have endorsed me, as well as many, many organizations. And any question that you could ask him, he would answer far more brilliantly than I could possibly imagine. But I can assure you that I was so proud of him when he was appointed to the Supreme Court, and we must keep him in his seat on the Supreme Court. And on his behalf, I humbly ask your members to vote for him.
I think he would be proud of your representation. And she was representing, and I will repeat that, Mark Davis for the North Carolina Supreme Court Associate Justice, seat 4, right?
That's right.
Thanks again for coming, and you have a good day.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Our next candidate is Tricia Shields.
Yes, ma'am.
How are you doing this afternoon?
I'm wonderful. I'm happy to be here.
Wonderful. Tricia Shields is a candidate for the North Carolina Court of Appeals, seat 4. Am I correct?
That's correct.
Wonderful. I'd like to share a little something about Tricia Shields. She graduated from Wake Forest University in 1982 and the UNC School of Law in 1985. She began her career as a law clerk to Chief Judge Hedrick of the North Carolina Court of Appeals. She has since had an active trial and appellate practice in state and federal courts. Tricia has represented North Carolinians in a wide variety of cases, including complex commercial litigation, malpractice and professional responsibility, products liability claims, civil rights claims. And because of her experience in appellate law, She is often hired by other attorneys to assist on their appeals. She has been an active member of the North Carolina Association of Defense Attorneys, serving as its president of the NCADA in 2011 to 2012. In addition to her full-time practice, she has taught trial advocacy at Campbell Law School for the past 7 years. She's been listed in the top 50 women lawyers since 2006, and in Best Lawyers in America since 2003. She's been listed in Business North Carolina's Legal Elite for Litigation and received a Women of Justice Award from the North Carolina Lawyers Weekly in 2012, and a Diversity and Inclusion Award from the NCSC North Carolina, South Carolina Lawyers Weekly in 2019. She recently received the J. Robert Elster, is that correct? Elster Award for Professional Excellence, which recognizes attorneys who exemplifies the highest standards of professionalism, integrity, and ethics, and conduct herself or himself in a civil, courteous manner with all persons, and has shown sustained excellent service to their clients, to the bar, and to the community. Welcome, Tricia Shields.
Thank you so very much. I appreciate that introduction, and I very much appreciate your efforts to put together this important forum for all of these elections. As Ms. Thorne said, my name is Tricia Shields. I'm the Democratic nominee for seat 4 on the North Carolina Court of Appeals.
Hey, I would just like for everybody to know, I do have a wonderful soror here who's named Penny Thorne, but mine is Jackie O. Swenson.
Oh, I'm sorry, Ms.
Jackie,
Swenson.
that's fine.
You show us Ms. Thorne on my screen, so thank you.
So each one teaches one.
That's right. That's right. Thank you.
From each other.
That's right. That's right. Yeah. So as Ms. Swenson said, I am the Democratic nominee for seat 4 on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. I'll tell you a little more about myself. I'm a native North Carolinian. I was born in Elizabeth City and was raised in Durham. My mother was a career social worker. My father was, for many years, a Baptist minister, and later became the director of Operation Breakthrough, which was an agency of the North Carolina Fund, and worked there in the 1960s. Later served as director of the Low Income Housing Development Corporation. I am the mother of 2 sons. My oldest followed in his grandmother's footsteps, and he is also a social worker, and my youngest is an economist who works in Washington, D.C., although now he lives at home in his mother's basement during this pandemic. And my husband, Grady, is an environmental lawyer that practices here in Raleigh. I have practiced law in North Carolina for 35 years. I began my career as an appellate law clerk, and that experience formed the basis of the lawyer that I am. I have represented North Carolinians at every level of our courts: district court, superior court, Supreme Court, and of course the Court of Appeals. As you all have heard from the other speakers, our Court of Appeals is the working court in our justice system. As Judge Inman said, it has a very, very heavy caseload. It is a court of general jurisdiction. It is my opinion and my experience from my own practice that it is very important to have judges on our Court of Appeals with a diversity of practice and a wide range of practice, and that's what I would bring to our Court of Appeals. I'm a firm believer in judicial independence. Although I am a Democrat, I am not running to be a Democratic judge. I believe in the separation of powers in our Constitution. I am running to be a fair, impartial, and independent judge to uphold the rule of law and to uphold the Constitution. I've been endorsed by many wonderful organizations, including the North Carolina Association of Educators, the North Carolina Social Workers Organization, the AFL-CIO, the Durham Committee on the Affairs of Black People, and a number of other organizations that you can see on my website. I have been endorsed by both the North Carolina Association of Defense Attorneys, which represent defend people in civil cases, and the North Carolina Advocates for Justice, that represent plaintiffs in civil cases. These are organizations that do not often agree with each other in the courtroom, but they agree that I am the appropriate person to fill seat 4 on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. Thank you so much, and I will answer any questions that you have.
Oh, thank you. The first question we have for you is, what role should an appellant judge's personal and political ideology play in deciding cases? And when, if ever, is it appropriate for an appellant judge to decide how to rule based solely on his or her personal opinions?
Thank you for that extremely important question. As I mentioned before, although I am a proud Democrat and have been a Democrat my entire voting life, I do not believe that a judge's personal opinions and political philosophy should have anything to do with the decisions that they make as a judge. Truthfully, the vast majority of cases that come before the Court of Appeals have no political issues to them at all. While they are very important to the parties that are involved, they do not have political implications in that sense. I believe it is important that everyone has confidence that they will be treated fairly in our justice system, regardless of their race, regardless of their gender, regardless of their wealth, and regardless of their political party. I have been supported in my campaign by a wide variety of people, Democrats and Republicans alike. So the personal politics should be left at the courthouse door, and every judge should treat everyone independently, fairly, and equally under the law.
The next question is, what attributes or traits or experience do you possess that makes you more uniquely qualified for the position of appellant court judge over your opponent?
The main thing that differentiates me between me and my opponent is my appellate experience. To my knowledge, my opponent has never handled a case at the North Carolina Court of Appeals. I have personally appeared in at least 50 appeals, and I've helped other lawyers on many, many other appeals as well. Because of my early experience as a law clerk, this has been a central part of my practice my entire career. And I believe that that is very important in a Court of Appeals judge. I'll be able to hit the ground running because I honestly understand what the job involves. In addition to that, another difference between me and my opponent is my opponent does run as a conservative judge. That's what she puts out in her campaign materials. And I do not do that. I do not run as a progressive or a liberal or any other kind of political label judge. I don't believe it is appropriate to tell people that to imply to people that you will make rulings based on your political persuasions. And that's one of the difference between me and my opponent.
Very good. We thank you again for coming, and we wish you well, but have a good day.
Thank you very much.
All right. And I'm going to have the next one, Judge Laura Cubbage or Kubage?
It's Cubbage. Thank you.
Thank you. I thought it was Cubbage, but wasn't for sure. But anyway, Ms. Cubbage is a candidate for the North Carolina Court of Appeals, seat 5.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am. We welcome you.
Thank you.
Share a little bit about Ms. Cubbage.
Okay.
Ms. Judge Laura Christine Cubbage currently serves as a Supreme Court judge based out of Guilford County. She received her bachelor's degree from North Carolina A&T State University and her law degree from UNC Chapel Hill School of Law. Judge Cubbage has held legal positions of Assistant District Attorney, Assistant Attorney General, District Court Judge, and currently Superior Court Judge. Judge Cubbage has served as a plaintiff and defense attorney. She is well-versed in criminal and civil law. Judge Cubbage practiced in the workers' compensation area of law for 6 years, and as an assistant attorney general handle or hand-led the appellant cases for the civil and criminal sections. Additionally, she's practiced and or presided in every trial court on the district and superior court levels, as well as the Court of Appeals. Judge Covich has experience protecting families, juveniles, and presiding over jury trials while ensuring that all parties are granted the rights given by the North Carolina and U.S. constitutions. She's also had the opportunity to be appointed by the Chief Justice of the North Carolina Supreme Court to preside over our 2.1 cases that involve complex civil litigation and matters in which the legislative branch is a party in the action. Judge Covich currently serves on the North Carolina Courts Commission, as well as other boards and organizations geared toward public service. Her judicial philosophy is to ensure that every litigant is afforded the protections guaranteed in our Constitution and to ensure they receive equal protection of the law from an independent judge whose decisions are based on the rule of law and demands of justice, leaving partisan politics out of the judiciary doors. Her experience, independence, and fairness are the necessary qualities needed to do the very important work at the Court of Appeals. Again, we welcome you and share what plans you have for us for North Carolina.
Well, thank you, Ms. Swenson, and thank you to the Duplin County Alumnae chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated. You've basically summed up everything that I was going to say in the introduction, so I thank you. But what I would like to say is the reason why all of what you said is important for the voters to know is because, as Tricia said, the Court of Appeals is called the working court. And so in order to get up there and hit the floor, hit the ground running, as Tricia said, you need the background and the experience that I've gotten. Over 50% of the cases that the Court of Appeals will review will be criminal cases. So you need a judge with trial court experience, and I have that experience as indicated on both levels of the trial court, the district level as well as a superior court level. Additionally, you also need someone that's well-versed in the civil arena. I have that experience in the civil arena. A lot of your civil cases will come from the workers' compensation area of law, and I practice in the workers' compensation section as an assistant attorney general. I also argue to the Court of Appeals the criminal cases and the civil cases as an assistant attorney general. So I believe that I am the candidate that is best situated and the only qualified candidate, as I'm the only candidate that has jury trial experience, arguing those jury trials as well as presiding over those jury trials, the only one that has the civil experience and the only one that has the appellate experience. And so I intend to bring all of the qualities mentioned in my bio to the Court of Appeals and continue to make sure that our cases are reviewed independently and fairly. Thank you.
Very good. I would like to ask you, what is your judicial philosophy in plain English?
In plain English, my judicial philosophy is to make sure that I do the least amount of harm possible to someone and help them in the most efficient and productive way that I can help them. I believe that it is my job and incumbent upon me as a judge to make sure that the guarantees given by the Constitution are given to every litigant that comes before me. I believe that access to justice and equal justice is what people come to court for when they air their concerns in front of a judge, and that they are to be given a fair shot. And as my colleague and my running mate, Judge Young, always says, they deserve to be met where they are and walk through the process. I'm an explaining judge, and so I don't just give out a ruling and let them try to figure out why I did what I did. I walk through it with them and let them know this is why I'm doing what I'm doing, and this is what I hope that it will accomplish.
Right, thank you. Your second question is, What role should an appellate judge's personal and political ideology play in deciding cases? And when, if ever, is it appropriate for an appellate judge to decide how to rule basically solely on his or her personal opinions?
Well, I have to piggyback off of what Tricia said. I don't believe that your personal opinion and your political agenda plays any role. Your party affiliation should not play any role in the cases that you decide. As she said, our Republican opponents are running as a slate, and they are running on what they say they are the conservative judges. Well, if your ideology for your life is conservative, then so be it. A lot of us have conservative values. That's neither here nor there when a person is standing beside you, asking you to decide matters that are going to affect their life for the rest of their life. Your personal opinion doesn't matter. It doesn't make a difference what I think about anything. What does the rule of law say? What does the Constitution say? And what is the demands of justice? So I don't think that there should be any role whatsoever. And those are those types of things that as judges we take an oath and make a commitment to put to the side when we are reviewing cases. And I believe that that's the way it should always be. I am a judge who has been ruling since I've been on the district and superior court benches independently, and given a thorough legal analysis, and then ruling pursuant to the rule of law.
Very good. You saved us some time. I mean, thank you. But do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Yes, ma'am. I would just like to let everyone know that I humbly, respectfully ask for your vote, and you can learn more about me and more than the 14 bipartisan endorsements that I've gotten by visiting my website, which is www.cubbage4judge, and that 4 is FOR, cubbageforjudge.com. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And again, have a good day.
You too.
Next, we have Grace Stiles. Is he available? See him up there.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Wilson, good to see you this afternoon. Thank you.
Hi, how are you doing? It's Grace Dyers, is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Very good. I see that you are a candidate for North Carolina Court of Appeals. Yes, seat 6. Thank you. Grace Stiles was born and raised his entire life in North Carolina. After graduating from law school, he served as a law clerk to the Honorable Sam J. Irving III, Chief Judge of the United States Court of Appeals for the 4th Circuit. He has since practiced law in Raleigh for almost 3 decades. He is known for his volunteer service to the legal profession, to his community, and to the state, for which he received a Citizen Lawyer Award from the North Carolina Bar Association and was named a leader in the Law by Lawyers Weekly. He was elected by his peers to serve as president of the Wake County Bar Association and as president of the 10th Judicial Bar District Bar. President of the 10th Judicial District Bar. He served on the North Carolina Bar Association Board of Governors and also on its Litigation Section Council and as chair of its Administrative Law Section Council. He focuses on his practice on regulatory law matters, economic development, renewable energy, and infrastructure projects in both rural and urban areas throughout the state. In addition, he also assists those less fortunate pro bono, though the Lawyer on the Line program of legal aid of North through the Lawyer, I guess this isn't, but anyway, I'll just correct this. Through the Lawyer on the Line program of legal aid of North Carolina, a program that he helped start as its founding co-chair at the North Carolina Bar Association. He's lived and served in North Carolina his entire life. He has traveled its highways and its byways. There are few counties in which he has not litigated a case or appeared before a town council or county board of commissioners or helped develop an infrastructure project. He loves the state and its people and hopes to now be able to serve them as a judge on the Court of Appeals. Ladies and gentlemen, Grace Stiers.
Thank you so very much, Ms. Swenson. I very much appreciate the introduction. And thank you for all those who organize such a great event such as this. It's a long ballot and a lot of candidates on the ballot this year. And a lot of folks don't know who the people are that are running for judge, who they are behind their names. And forums such as this are so important to inform folks who is running and why they should vote for them. As your introduction highlighted, I've had a very long and successful career as a lawyer in North Carolina. I have been involved in many, many cases. One case that I've been particularly involved, that I'm particularly proud of, that I was involved in, was back in the 1990s. A group of businesses, farmers, and individuals in Eastern North Carolina had formed a group called the Eastern North Carolina Chamber of Commerce. And the Eastern North Carolina Chamber of Commerce retained me to represent them as an amicus party, a friend of the court party, to file a brief at the Supreme Court in the Leandro case. Some of you may remember the Leandro case. It was a case discussing the inequitable funding for our public school students in North Carolina, and the case that established a constitutional right to a sound basic education for all school children in North Carolina. I was very proud to have represented Eastern North Carolina in that case, and proud to have supported the plaintiffs, the students who sought that constitutional right, and to have been involved in that case. After having had such a great career, a lot of folks ask me, well, why are you considering running for judge? You've done well in private practice as a lawyer. Why would you give that up to be a judge? And the answer is two parts. The one is that I have had a great career in a state that I love very much, with great leaders like Terry Sanford and Jim Hunt and now Roy Cooper. I went to public schools. My father was a public school teacher. I went to a great public university. I've benefited from the institutions of this state. And now I want to give back to this state, to give back to the future. My wife is a Presbyterian minister, and I have children that are in their 20s. And I want North Carolina to be a great state for my children and my future grandchildren. Secondly, I'm concerned about the trust and confidence that the public has in our court system, and you've mentioned that in some of your earlier questions. I'm concerned about the rule of law and making sure that our courts provide equal justice under the law to everyone, regardless of status or identity or traits. But those are very important principles to me. They're principles that I taught as a professor at the UNC School of Law, that I spoke about as a bar president, and now that I have the opportunity to run on as a candidate for the Court of Appeals. I would greatly appreciate your support this fall and look forward to answering your questions. Thank you for this opportunity.
Wonderful, thank you. What role do you think an appellant judge's personal and political ideology play in deciding cases? And when, if ever, is it appropriate for an appellant judge to decide how to rule based solely on his or her personal opinions?
Our first obligation, and the obligation that's part of our oath of office when we are sworn in, and our oath and our commitment to follow the rule of law, is to do just that, is to make sure that we are following established prior case law or precedent, constitutional principles, the statutes, and treating everyone the same. And in that regard, our personal preferences, our personal values, are really should not weigh into how we apply the law fairly to everyone and provide consistency to the law. We shouldn't be legislating from the bench. We should be deciding cases fairly and consistently. So in that regard, our personal preferences and should not enter into at all those decisions, just as Ms. Shields and just as Judge Cubbage explained. I do think that we do bring values, a moral compass, experience, the people that we have come in contact with and have represented in our careers, and that helps us understand the consequences of our decisions. Judge Irvin used to always tell his clerks, never forget, our cases are about real people with real problems, and our decisions have real consequences. And I think understanding the people in the cases are important. But again, our personal preferences of ourselves should not determine or dictate how we feel as a judge in an appellate courts.
All right, thank you. The next question is, what attributes, traits, experience do you possess that makes you more uniquely qualified for the position of appellate court judge over your opponent?
I would identify three key differences. The first difference is experience, the accomplishments in your career, and what we've done in the legal profession. You know, you've read out my background. You know what my experience has been. To my knowledge, my opponent has never tried a case in any courtroom in any county in the state of North Carolina to verdict. He's never argued any case to the appellate courts in North Carolina. He's not been in the courtroom. He hasn't seen judges in the courtroom setting rule for or against yourself and your clients. You know, I think that that's a key difference between me and my opponent. It's just the experience that we have had in the legal profession. Secondly, my opponent has consistently, time and time again, affirmed whatever the General Assembly's legislation was passed without any hard analysis to whether it was or was not constitutional. It is important to understand that the role of the courts are to determine the constitutional boundaries of executive and legislative action. And he has consistently throughout his career failed to understand that role of the courts and failed to apply constitutional limits to those cases. Most recently, we saw that in a case that Judge Young dissented in, and when he ruled against the NAACP versus Moore a few weeks ago. And third, as my other candidates that I'm running with here speaking to you today have noted, our opponents have labeled themselves ideologically conservative. They're running under that ideological banner. They're not putting the rule of law first. They're not putting people first. They're putting ideology first as they run as conservative judges. And that is not what I think we should be doing. And that's not the type of candidate and not the type of judge I would be if elected.
Thank you so very much. We'll take that in consideration. Thanks again for coming. And you have a nice day for what's left of it.
Thank you so very much for this opportunity.
Thank you. The next candidate is for North Carolina Court of Appeals, 6-7, Reuben F. Young.
Yes.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon to you as well.
Wonderful. I'd like to share with our audience a little bit about Reuben F. Young. Judge Reuben F. Young was appointed by Governor Roy Cooper to the North Carolina Court of Appeals on April 15, 2019. Previously, Judge Young served as an interim Chief Deputy Secretary of Adult Corrections and Juvenile Justice. In this role, Judge Young worked with state officials to enhance safety in prisons and to improve the rehabilitation of offenders. He's traveled across the state to survey facilities and to speak with state employees. And often he speaks to state employees about improving the prison system. From 2009 to 2011, Judge Young served as Secretary of the former Department of Crime Control and Public Safety. He was the first Secretary of the newly consolidated Department of Public Safety in 2012. Later, Judge Young was appointed Special Superior Court Judge for the 10th Judicial District of North Carolina. He served as a jurist for 5 years until he returned to the Department of Public Safety as its interim Chief Secretary. He began his legal career in Austin, Texas, where he worked as a prosecutor, assistant attorney general, and private practitioner. When he returned to North Carolina in 1995, Judge Young worked for the State Department of Justice, specifically the Department of Crime Control and Public Safety, for 6 years. In 2001, he joined the governor's office as deputy legal counsel, and then chief legal counsel. Judge Young received the Distinguished Service Medal for his support of the North Carolina National Guard during his tenure in the governor's office. He has also twice received the Order of the Longleaf Pine. Judge Young is a graduate of Howard University in Washington, D.C., and North Carolina Central University School of Law in Durham. To our audience, we present Judge Reuben F. Young. You may begin, sir.
Thank you so very much, and thank you for the opportunity to be here, and certainly thank all of you who are responsible for organizing this wonderful event. My name is Reuben Young. I'm a judge currently serving on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. I was appointed by Governor Cooper, and I've been serving on the court since May of last year. By way of context, let me tell you that I am married, have been married to my beautiful wife, Pam, for 34 years. She and I met in law school and subsequently got married. We have 2 children. I have one son who is an attorney in Ohio and another who most recently received his PhD in the field of biochemistry and molecular biology. My wife's father was the chancellor of Elizabeth City State University for 16 years before he passed away in 1983. I am honored to be here because I am honored to be member of a slate of candidates who are not only committed to the fair imposition of justice, but to also make sure that we have a judiciary that is fair, impartial, and independent. I have, over the course of my career, been an advocate for and a supporter of more racial diversity on the judiciary, and also diversity as it applies to gender. My work in the governor's office has allowed me the opportunity to push forward folks to be considered for positions not just in the judiciary, but also on boards and commissions that otherwise would not have been considered, but whose talents were far exceeded so many other people. So I am honored to be here. I thank you for that kind introduction. I'm going to stop there and allow you to ask me what questions you may have. Thank you again. If you want to find out more about me, you can go to my website of keepjudgeyoung.com. Thank you.
Thank you so very much. The first question that I have for you is, what is your judicial philosophy in plain English?
Well, Judge Cubbage alluded to something she has heard me say on more than one occasion. And I do think that as judges, what we have to do is we have to meet people where they are, not where we want them to be or where we expect them to be. All of us come from different places. We have all traveled different journeys, and every one of those journeys and every one of those places and every one of those people deserve the utmost respect and dignity that we can give them. And it's the responsibility of the court to do that, but that also means that we need to listen to the arguments that they make, give them full consideration, and fairly apply the law in an even-handed way and make sure that it is applied equally to everyone.
Very good. What is the role of an appellate judge in relation to other judges or justices?
Well, our responsibilities are to make sure that the law has been applied fairly and that the legal procedure has been applied fairly. The Court of Appeals has 15 members. I am one of 2 African-American members of that court, Wanda Bryant, who will be retiring, and Judge Cubbage, who will be taking her seat after the November election, will serve as a member of the court as well. We sit in panels of 3. We hear cases twice a month. We have about 12 cases that are assigned to each panel, which means that we author about 4 opinions every session, about 8 opinions every month. And our responsibilities, again, are to read the record, read the briefs, apply the law, and render a decision fairly with regard to the law. Now, the one thing I will say, and one thing that I will never do, I will never deny who I am, where I come from, what I've been taught, and what my values are. And while in your previous question you asked whether a court, whether a judge should ever impose its own opinion or philosophy with regard to a case, my colleagues have, and my soon-to-be colleagues have answered that better than I could. But the one thing I would say is with regard to that, is that regardless of the position that I am in, I will never deny who I am and where I came from, because that plays a part of who I am, and it plays a role in the kind of person that I am and the way I want to see the world.
Thank you so very much. And we thank you again for coming. I just want to repeat your candidacy, which is for North Carolina Court of Appeals, and you are seat 7.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so very much for having me.
And have a good day.
Yes, ma'am. You as well.
All right, as we move along, our next candidate for North Carolina Court of Appeals, seat 13, is Chris Brook. How are you doing?
Doing great. Thank you so much for having me today.
Great. I would like to share a little bit about Judge Chris Brook. He spent his formative years in Raleigh attending Oberlin, formerly Daniels Middle School, and Brockton High School. He received his undergraduate Juris Doctor JD degrees from the University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill. He first practiced law in the Raleigh office of Cranfield, Summer, and Hartzog. He then worked as a staff attorney at the Southern Coalition for Justice in Durham. From 2012 to 2019, Chris was the legal director of the American Civil Liberties Union of North Carolina, and he was admitted to practice in North Carolina state courts as well as each federal district court in the state, the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, and the Supreme Court of the United States. He successfully litigated matters in both state and federal court, including before a rare sitting of the full Fourth Circuit. He has received numerous recognitions for his contributions to the community and the legal profession in the state. He was inducted into the James E. and Carolyn B. Davis Society upon his graduation from North Carolina Law, and was subsequently honored as the school's outstanding recent graduate in 2016. Since his April 2019 appointment to the North Carolina Court of Appeals by Governor Roy Cooper, Chris has authored more than 80 opinions that speak to his rigor, fairness, and respect for each North Carolinian who appears before him. To our audience, I present to you Judge Chris Brook. Welcome.
Thank you so much for that warm introduction, Mayor. I really appreciate it. And I thank the Duplin County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority for having us this afternoon. It's so important to have opportunities like this to talk about down ballot races like ours. A lot of us know who we're voting for president. A lot of us know who we're voting for governor, but it's important to know about these judicial races. And I really appreciate this opportunity to talk with y'all. Also appreciate the opportunity to do so in a safe fashion. We need to take care of one another at this moment in time. So appreciate this virtual opportunity. One thing I'll stress, none of us who you've heard running for the Court of Appeals are running against one another. We're all the Democratic nominees for our respective seats on the court, so we're only facing Republican opponents on the ballot in November. My name is Chris Brook. I'm a judge on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. I currently hold seat 13 on the Court of Appeals, and I'm running to keep my seat. As was referenced, I grew up in Raleigh. My mom was a public school teacher, single mom. I'm a double Tar Heel. Went to UNC for undergrad and for law school. And I only ever practiced in North Carolina, first at a law firm, as the mayor referenced, but then for more than a decade before being appointed to the bench, I was a public interest attorney. I also taught legal research, writing, and advocacy at UNC School of Law. And all of that work, from firm work to public interest work to being a law professor, really prepared me well to serve on the North Carolina Court of Appeals, and I think in 3 different ways. First, I got the opportunity to represent and work with North Carolinians from all walks of life, from corporate boardrooms to the public meeting room at your public library. So I have a good perspective on the challenges that North Carolinians face in our legal system. Second, I worked on subject matter areas that really correspond well to the work that comes before the North Carolina Court of Appeals, from workers' compensation work to estate work to property work to voting rights work, which is a lot of what I did at ACLU, and SCSJ, to constitutional law. And finally, and this is a big distinction from my opponent that I'm facing on the ballot in November, I have experience working across our state and federal court system, from state and federal trial courts all the way through the appellate court system, leading litigation at my court, the North Carolina Court of Appeals, but also, as the mayor referenced, successfully leading litigation before the Supreme Court of the United States. Governor Cooper appointed me to the bench in April of 2019. On Tuesday, we have opinions coming out. I believe I have 5 more opinions coming out, so that'll be 88 opinions that I've written in a year and a half. So you know that I'm not twiddling my thumbs. The vast majority of those 88 opinions, majority opinions, the vast majority of those majority opinions, unanimous opinions. So you know that I'm at least episodically persuasive when it comes to my colleagues. But if you look at those opinions, bottom line, what you see is someone who respects every North Carolinian who appears before our court at the Court of Appeals.
Very good. Since you alluded to your colleagues, what attributes or traits or experience do you possess that makes you more uniquely qualified for the position of appellate court judge over your opponents?
Well, quantitatively and qualitatively, I just have very different experience from my opponent. I've not only been a practicing lawyer in North Carolina for a lot longer than my opponent, but I have qualitative experience that really prepares me well to serve on the North Carolina Court of Appeals. I'm the only candidate seeking seat 13 who's worked across the state and federal court system. So I've written briefs that have been filed in the North Carolina Court of Appeals and the Fourth Circuit Court of Appeals, in the Supreme Court of the United States. I've stood up and made arguments on behalf of my clients in those courts. I don't believe my opponent has ever signed, let alone led litigation in any appellate court in the state of North Carolina. It's exceptionally hard work that we do at the North Carolina Court of Appeals. Even the most experienced person is drinking from a fire hydrant. But the experience that I had, really sort of made the learning curve, it bent it a little bit, made it a little bit easier starting that work. I'm the only candidate to have served on the Court of Appeals. So you've got a track record that you can look at, and you can look at those 88 opinions that I've written in my year and a half on the Court of Appeals and see that I'm up to the task, but also you can see my commitment to treating every North Carolinian fairly and my commitment to equal justice under the law.
Very good. The last question I would like to ask you is, what is your judicial philosophy in plain English?
Sure. My judicial philosophy is to master the record, master the facts, master the law, and go to the conclusion that the facts and the law in that particular case lead to, and to rule without fear or favor. So let me unpack that just a little bit. First, it's exceptionally important that we not start with the conclusion. You should never prejudge a case or arrive at a result before you've engaged with the case enough based on who's appearing before you. And one of the things that I'm proudest of in the 88 opinions that I've written on the North Carolina Court of Appeals is you can see that I'm an independent member of the judiciary. I'm not saying that because you're a member of this group, you win or you lose. I'm instead looking at the facts and I'm looking at the law. And then the other part of that, ruling without fear or favor, you know, we are, our oath is to abide by the Constitution. It's to abide by the law. It's to follow the facts to the conclusion which they lead. It's not to arrive at a result that's going to make you popular on Tuesday. It's to arrive at the result that is dictated by the Constitution, by the law, regardless of who is appearing in front of you. And I take that oath that I took when I was sworn in as a member of the court after I was appointed by Governor Cooper seriously every day that I walk up the steps of the North Carolina Court of Appeals.
Very good. And again, I thank you for coming, and we just want to remind everyone that you're running for the North Carolina Court of Appeals, seat 13. And you have a good day.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, and thanks for the work y'all are doing in Duplin County to get the word out. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. All right. Our next candidate is for the North Carolina State Senate, District 10, Mr. Vernon R. Moore.
Hello.
Good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon. How are you?
Great, great.
Great.
I'd like to share a little something about Mr. Vernon Ray Moore. He was born in the farmhouse his father built outside Warsaw, North Carolina, January 29, 1951. His father was a farmer. His grandfathers were farmers who owned their small farms. Hard work, smart work was a necessary part of life. He attended elementary school at P.E. Williams Elementary School, Magnolia, North Carolina, and high school at E. Smith High School, Kenansville, North Carolina, where he graduated first in his class at both schools. He earned his, or I should say he attended North Carolina A&T State University and graduated from Fayetteville State University, Fayetteville, North Carolina, with a Bachelor of Science, Business Administration with additional foundational education work in finance and economics. Associates in Applied Science, Human Resources, and Associates in Applied Science, Industrial Security. In 2008, Vernon volunteered with calls and events for Organizing for America, President Obama's presidential campaign. During the next 12 months, he worked with organizing staff to advocate for the Affordable Care Act. He was a 2012 Spring Fellow with Organizing for America, the 2012 Obama campaign. After inauguration in January 2013, he became a founding member of Organizing for Action. When I think of how to explain the way our community's strengths and challenges are being addressed, I find it difficult to explain why all our voices are not heard. Our needs are not fully addressed. We can choose to invest in our public education system by recruiting, training, and retaining educators and staff, thus providing our children in public schools the best possible opportunity for a future they will help to build. We can decide to invest in their future to ensure they have the tools needed by our communities, state, and nation to creatively build a better nation. That's what Mr. Vernon Ray Moore feels. And he also adds that if he is elected, he will advocate for North Carolina to offer our people affordable, comprehensive health care no matter where they live. or what their work is or who their parents are. He will advocate for investments in our public education system to recruit, train, and retain our professional educators and give them a staff to support their efforts to provide our children with the tools they need to succeed in the third, fourth, and fifth decades of the 21st century. For meaningful change to move our state forward, he feels we must first make meaningful change in our thinking. The thinking that attracts business creators and business opportunities must be prefaced by forward thinking and work in education and retaining that prepares our workforce to become an attractive workforce. With a change in our thinking and the hard work necessary, our state can be the center for innovation and creativity that attracts and retains the future creators in businesses and services. To our audience, we introduce Mr. Vernon Moore. He is running for North Carolina Senate. Excuse me, you are running for the North Carolina Senate District 10?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much for introducing that great introduction. I don't feel like I really need to say very much more. But I'm Vernon Moore, and I chose to run because no one else stood up for that position. And at that point, I realized that I need to stand up for that position because I really feel that Duplin County, Sampson and Johnson County need a person to represent them. And as a state senator, you don't just represent that area, you represent those people, but you also represent the whole state. To make sure that folks have a voice, every person in the state has a voice, to make sure that we are represented by constitutional law. I don't have a law degree, but I can read. And I know that when 500,000 people don't have health insurance and they've been paying since they started, everyone that works has been paying since they started working, they ought to be insured. And every child ought to have the best opportunity to reach their highest potential. It shouldn't be based on who their parents are or where they live. And every time someone wants to find out something, they shouldn't have to wait till 8 o'clock in the morning, Monday through Friday, to be able to go to a library. They should actually have technology in their communities that is based on the ability to provide that at an affordable price. My granddaddy on both sides did not have lights as they grew up, not electrical lights, but in the 30s, the 40s, and 50s, it was decided in this country that they could collectively figure out how to make sure every rural area had electricity. And by the 1960s, there were still people in North Carolina that did not have it. But now, if you want electricity, you can get it at an affordable price. Broadband should not be a commodity for the rich. It should be for everybody. Just those things that I just mentioned are things that help our kids become better, more successful. I spent 22 years in the U.S. Air Force, and we draw from every community across the country. And those people give us the opportunity to have a safe nation and a safe world. It is up to us to make sure that our kids can represent us and that they shouldn't have to travel across the world or the state or the country to find employment. They're creative people. Look at little kids and ask them questions and find out that they listen to things that happen from all over the world, and they ought to have that opportunity to actually use their creativity where they live to do the best that they can for our nation. And we're not doing that in North Carolina.
Thank you so very much. Enough said. Thank you for those remarks. And now I have a question for you. There's been much commentary and differing opinions regarding mail-in voting. What is your view on mail-in voting and measures do you support to improve and secure elections and voting in our country?
Well, we need to first make sure that folks can vote wherever they are. And in this environment of COVID-19, one of the most virulent viruses ever, we should actually be able to vote by mail or in-person voting. And we should vote early voting. But first of all, the mail-in voting is a secure way of voting. It is individually packaged so that when a person reads through and has a proper opportunity to fill out the form with their name and information and have a viable witness that they've signed it and that they've returned it, we have a process where they don't even have to put it in the mailbox. If they want to make sure it gets into the poll, they can take it in by hand. So everyone should have the opportunity to vote. It shouldn't be, if you're 18 years of age, you actually ought to be able to vote, and you shouldn't have to do anything else but show up at the poll on the voting day.
Thank you. My next question is, since our state has not expanded Medicaid, do you support expanding Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act? Why or why not?
Of course yes, I do. When you become born in this country, you ought to have access to affordable quality health care, regardless to where you live. You live in North Carolina, someone's paying for you to have access. Every working person pays for access to the Affordable Care Act. From the first day you work, the first time you're eligible to work, and you sign a contract to work in a public job, you're paying for that health care. It is not free. And the actuarial table says that most people never actually get the chance to get there. A significant number of people don't get the chance to actually get the money, the health care that they paid for, because they don't live through that period. So.
All right, we thank you for sharing with us this afternoon. Did you have something to add, sir?
Oh, I thank you for the opportunity to be here in front of you. My light's not really good. I'm just doing the best I can here, all by myself. And I thank you for the opportunity to speak and share with you today.
We thank you, and you have a good afternoon. All right, thank you. Our next candidate is a candidate for the North Carolina House of Representatives, District 4. We have two candidates. We have Christopher Schultz and Jimmy Dixon. Are both of them available?
Yes, Chris Schulte is here.
Okay, I will share a little something about Chris Schulte. And it's Chris Schulte.
It is Schulte, yes.
Thank you. Thank you. Chris Schulte was born and raised in, is that Southwest Ohio?
Yes.
Okay, graduating with a BS in psychology from Wright State University. He said he then did his graduate work at the University of North Texas in Denton, Texas, where he earned an MS in psychology. He was trained as a counselor with thousands of hours of experience, but decided to go into teaching at the college level to share his love of psychology with his students. Then he moved on to Eastern North Carolina in the summer of 2008 and started his career with his current employer, Coastal Carolina Community College, as a full-time faculty member. Family is the most important part of who he is. And he says he's married to his wonderful wife, Shelley Freeman. She is a licensed counselor with a private practice here in Eastern North Carolina. And she is a Jacksonville native. They have two children, Evander and Amelia. and they are raising them in their home in Richlands. To our audience, we have no one other than Chris Schulte, who's running for North Carolina House of Representative District 4. Welcome.
Thank you so much for having me. This is a fantastic opportunity for me to talk to the people of Duplin County. And so specifically, thank you to Delta Sigma Theta Alumni Chapter of Duplin County to allow me to have some few minutes here to be able to talk a little bit. As was said, I am a psychology professor. I'm an educator. I love my field of study, and so you might be wondering, why is it that you decided to run for office? Well, like was said in my biography, I moved here in 2008 to Eastern North Carolina, and I saw the change politically in this state around 2010 when we saw a huge shift to a much more regressive policy, making anti-intellectual, frankly, harmful to the average North Carolinian approach. And that continued throughout the decade until my son was born in 2016. I then said, I need to get more involved. I can't just sit back and allow this to happen to my state, my community, my country. And so I had decided that I was going to run for office because of my son. And in fact, when he was born, one of the first things I said to him was, man, you've got to fix this. And I thought, as the second those words came out of my mouth, that is the most unfair thing, unfair burden that I could put on my newly born son, that it's my job to protect him. And now my daughter, who's a year old, Amelia, that it's my job to step up and serve the people of North Carolina. That there are far too many people that have been left behind over the last decade with regressive policies in our General Assembly. So what I am going to do is I'm going to get elected, go up to Raleigh, and make some real change there. That we have currently a bunch of folks that have gone in 2010, started in 2011. They gerrymandered districts. They've done all kinds of unconstitutional things. I am going to make a change to that. That I am an average North Carolinian. I am not somebody that is retired. I'm not a lawyer. But what I am is somebody that is in touch with so many regular people every single day in my classroom. And so I hope that I can get your vote and your support, and I can go and make some of that necessary change in the General Assembly. Thank you so much for having me.
The first question that I would like to ask you, well, no, let me go on and introduce your opponent first, Mr. Jimmy Dixon, and then I'll come back to you.
Okay.
Is he online? Okay, since he's not, I understand that he's not here, he's not available, so we will go on with your questions. All right.
Okay.
North Carolina has over 216,000 cases of COVID-19, and Duplin County has 2,448 as the time that we actually probably checked the stats, the data. But as I said, Duplin County has over 2,448,000 cases of COVID-19 and 54 deaths. What health and safety measures would you support to decrease the spread of COVID-19 in our agricultural and meat packing industries?
Yeah, that's a great question, because obviously this is a horrible pandemic that we're dealing with. All of us are being affected greatly. And the main way that we can really make change is to make sure that everybody has easy and affordable access, hopefully free access to testing. So that way we can test, we can trace, we can contain this virus. Because until we have a vaccine, we're not going to be able to stop this. And so what has to happen is that we need to take precautions now. We should not wait any longer. I certainly hope that the General Assembly does not wait any longer to do more about this pandemic until I'm elected in November and take my seat in January of next year. Certainly in Duplin County, as you said, our meatpacking plants, our farmers, those essential workers, we have to protect them as best we can. So we need to have funding to help those people do their work safely. We cannot continue to allow those kinds of unsanitary situations, no masks, no PPE, in which that we saw in a meatpacking plant here currently. We've had a big outbreak. We've seen outbreaks in our schools in this area as well. So we need to make sure that we're giving teachers and our nursing staff all of the equipment that they need.
All righty. You had another second. Did you need to complete that sentence or that thought?
No, well, no, it's just that that's what I think we need to be able to do, is that we need to fully fund all of our protective processes.
Very good. I'm going to continue with another question that relates to COVID-19. COVID-19 has shed light on the inadequacy, in some cases, the total lack of broadband accessibility in rural areas such as Duplin County. Many students are unable to access schoolwork without leaving home to locate Wi-Fi. What will you do to increase broadband accessibility in Duplin County?
Well, the first thing that we have to do is that we have to make a full investment from our General Assembly, our legislature, to be able to get that last mile of line out there. It's very much like Vernon Moore was saying before, is that we've done this before. We have made sure that we got electricity out to everybody. Now it's time to make sure that we have high-speed internet access that is affordable for everybody. That we have had multiple times where the internet companies, cable companies have said it's just not worth our time and our money and investment to make that last mile, to get out there to all of those folks in those rural areas. But if we then don't, as a state, put forward those monies, put forward that investment, we're going to continue to lag behind the rest of the country. And certainly in areas like Duplin County, where we have such shoddy internet service and availability here, that we're not going to be able to have a competition for those new jobs that could come into our area, that could come into North Carolina, that we are moving into a future where if you don't have internet access, high-speed internet access, you're going to have a lot of trouble getting a job, keeping a job, and doing your job. And so what we have to do certainly is to make sure that we're investing properly in getting that out there to everybody and making it an incentive-laden kind of thing as well for the private business to be able to come and help out with that as well.
All right, thank you. I was just wondering if I was supposed to read Jimmy Dixon's bio. Okay, since he's not available. All right. Look, Chris Schulte, we thank you for coming.
Thank you so much for having me.
That you have a good day.
Thank you, you too.
Okay, next on our agenda, we have two candidates running for the Duplin County Commissioner District 4, Andrew M. Odom and Jesse Lee Dow III. Are they available? Andrew Odom, I see him, but.
Mr. Odom is available. There he is.
Okay, Jesse Dow is going to go first. Odom is here, okay. All right, good afternoon, Mr. Dow. How are you doing?
Doing just fine.
Great, great. We're glad to have you. I'm going to share your bio and then you can have some comments that you would like to make, an opening statement, and then we will hear from your opponent, and then he will come back with, he will have an opening statement. Then we will ask you the first question.
Okay, ma'am, just to be fair, Mr. Odom's on the list before me, so I give him the opening if you would.
That's what I was. All right. Okay, you're going first. That's fine. They're going according to the way it's on the ballots. Yes, sir. How are you doing this afternoon? Mr. Dow, you first.
I'm doing fine.
Andrews first. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. We're going to take Mr. Odom first. Mr. Odom, are you ready and available? Mr. Dow, yield to you. You ready? Can you hear me? I need you to say something. Make sure we can't hear you. Can you turn your mic on? Lisa, 1 minute. You might know how to fix it. So it's connecting to audio. Mm-hmm. Okay, it's coming through. You may have to get on the telephone.
Still muted.
Is that better?
Much better. Oh, we're so glad to have you.
Yeah, I was on the telephone, so.
Multitasking, huh? Okay. Here we go.
No, I was on the telephone audio.
Audio, okay. Yes, Mr. Odom, Andrew Odom, you are a candidate for the Duplin County Commissioner District 4.
Yes, ma'am.
I'm going to share a little about you, and then I'm going to let you have your opening statements, and then we're going to hear about your components, hear his opening statements, and then you'll have the first question.
Sounds good.
Very good. Mr. Andrew Odom and his family planted roots in Duplin County in 2015. After living all around the country, Odom has been a proud Carolinian since 2010. He currently works as the custom program manager at River Landing in Wallace. He has a master's degree in education and curriculum from Regent University in Virginia Beach, Virginia. He and his wife, Crystal Pridgeon Odom, met doing mission work around the world. Their daughter attends New Hope Christian Academy in Wallace, and he's involved in the sustainable and affordable housing movement for many years, and has also loved learning about 20th century history. For over 15 years, he's focused on helping people communicate their mission, vision, and image. He's worked as an editor, a photo producer, and a project manager. He's also worked as a community manager, content crusader, a social media manager, and an online marketer. Over the last several years, he streamlined those skills into his current role with Murphy Farm Ventures as the custom home program manager. He works with people to separate need from want and truly turn a house into a home. Some of his other accomplishments include online managing editor, community manager of Minute Fix LLC based in San Jose, California, event founder of 2017 and 18, a content editor for Tiny House Magazine. He has had several other recognitions, Relevant Magazine, Barnesville Herald Gazette, and several other ones. Other clients include Skype, Weston Savannah Harbor, Georgia Southern University. As of 2018, Odom has been included in 2 published books and has self-published 2 additional books. Ladies and gentlemen, in our audience, I introduce Mr. Odom for Duplin County Commissioner. You may now have your opening statement, sir.
Thank you so much for that excellent introduction. I also want to thank the Duplin County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated for this opportunity to participate in this virtual candidate forum. I think it's an important step in the election process for voters to get an opportunity to become more acquainted with the candidates, and also for us as candidates to show our ability to work together for the betterment of our communities, and in my particular case for Duplin County. I think it's, this past year's been anything but normal, and I think we can agree that a once held idea of kind of business as usual is in the process of being completely restructured. Now, as you can hear from my bio, this is my first venture into politics at any level, and I've been motivated by the absolute desire to represent my friends and my family and my neighbors. The role of county commissioner is an important one, with its primary foundation to be approving budgets, overseeing the spending, and hiring county employees in order to keep the county running smoothly and in service to the county residents. As you said, I'm a husband, I'm a father, a Duplin County resident. I work full-time. I believe the county's been run well over the past few years, but I believe it could be run better, and I was looking forward to the opportunity to help in that. And throughout this entire year, from the time I was walking, house to house to get to secure signatures until now, I've been able to meet some incredible people in the county, hear their concerns, help them find answers to their questions. And I think that that level of communication and transparency is so very important. I'm nothing if not a communicator, as you've heard. I look forward to being able to move that desire for open communication to the commissioner's seat. I'm an unaffiliated candidate. I'm compelled simply by the desire to serve all people from all walks of life without bias or preferential treatment. There's no doubt I have very big shoes to fill, but I feel confident that I'm up to the challenge, and I look forward to serving the county in cooperation with residents, fellow representatives at all levels, and especially my own faith and integrity.
Very good. My first question, which I will give when we hear from Commissioner Dow, all right? Okay, just stand by, don't leave us, all right?
I'll be right here.
All right, Jesse Lee Dow III. I'm gonna say hi again. Hope you're doing well. And thank you for coming. Thank you for being here with us this afternoon.
My pleasure.
I'm gonna share a little bit about Mr. Dow. He was born in Birmingham, Alabama in the 1950s during earlier times of civil unrest, when the South was slowly changed after the signing of the Civil Rights Act of 1964 and the Voting Bill of Rights in 1965. He said his father joined the military during these times as a way to get out of Alabama with their family. However, he was sent to Vietnam 3 times, and during these times, we lived with my mother's parents in Birmingham. He talks about his experiences with the members of the KKK, and the fact that in 1963, 4 young Black girls were killed by a bomb in the 16th Street Baptist Church by members of the KKK. He says he feels it is a fundamental duty to serve mankind as a symbol of public faith and public trust. He says, I'm on numerous boards in and outside of our county that serve our constituents. The East Carolina Council serves 9 counties and municipalities within those with all types of community-related services. He's on the executive board, audit, and finance committees. The East Carolina Rural Planning Organization serves us with our roads and transportation issues. The North Carolina Black County elected officials serves to protect the constitutional rights of all men and women to liberty, equality, and justice. Also, he's on the task force for racial and social justice, to name just a few. It is a tremendous honor to serve the citizens of Duplin County as a commissioner. He was appointed to the Duplin County Board of Commissioners in July of 2014, and then ran in December 2014 and 2016, respectively. At this time, I am serving my 3rd year as chair, having served as vice chair for 2 years. At present, I am an ambassador for the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners as a director for District 3, which encompasses 9 counties from Duplin County east from Wayne County to Onslow County. This board plays an important and active role in preparing for 100 counties to collaborate with their specific needs, and this is to help ensure that the advocacy priorities for counties are well represented at the state and federal levels. When it comes to collaboration opportunities, Mr. Dow would like for you to know that he is a member of several organizations that are designed to help foster strong ties to the communities they serve, some of which have already been stated. He has been the president of the Duplin Rotary organization on 2 occasions. It is a worldwide organization with eradicating polio as one of the #1 initiatives. Our motto is to serve above self. We recognize students each month and award scholarships to 4 high school students each year. We also recognize citizens every Thursday throughout a calendar year for their leadership in our communities. I try my best to represent, and my sincere hope for the future is to live in a society where all people are created and treated equally and have the opportunity to be offered fair pay, education, and medical services. Ladies and gentlemen in our audience, I introduce Mr. Jesse L. Dow III. You may have your opening comments now, sir.
Okay, thank you very much, Ms. Swenson. I'd like to thank the Duplin County Alumni Chapter of the Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated for bringing the candidates for elected office in North Carolina together for this forum. You heard my name is Jesse Dow, and I'm running for the District 4 County Commissioner. My willingness to serve has its rewards, and that is to represent the people of Duplin County and the state of North Carolina. I am a public servant who has taken an oath to serve mankind. Every job that I have had as an adult has had an oath of office attached to it. I received the Order of the Long Leaf Pine because of my dedication of service to the citizens of North Carolina. I've worked in 4 governments, U.S. Army and the federal government, worked in the city of Raleigh with the municipal government, state of North Carolina, and now the county of Duplin in honorary service. I'm fighting the fight and staying the course and running this race. I love Duplin County. I love Duplin County, and I have represented this county with care and diligence to serve you in this county as a county commissioner and will deal with the challenges that the future will bring. I'm socially aware of everything that affects this county, and I'm asking you for your support in this upcoming election. I am confident that I am the person to represent this county and will continue to lead and guide you for the next 4 years. Currently, like Ms. Swenson said, I'm the chair and have been for 3 years and vice chair twice. I like governing by using the team concept. I know that I'm not the smartest person in the room, and I surround myself with people that are smarter than I am. This county has a lot of intricate parts to it that involve different departments within the government. First thing that I like to address is the coronavirus in this county. We are below the 5% infection rate. However, I stress wear your mask, keep a social distance, and wash your hands. Unfortunately, we have 55 deaths reported as of this week, and 92 individuals that are in isolation. Our unemployment rate is one of the lowest in the state at 4.9% at this current time. We need to keep our county safe and secure for people that we care about. We have issues that I have been working on since being in office since 2014. The school situation. We borrowed money to build additions onto our elementary schools and to accommodate our middle school students. High schools are next. Hopefully that will occur without controversy. Our future is our youth. I do my best to help our youth by driving a school bus when necessary, officiate high school and middle school sports, instruct driver's education, and as a facilitator with the Mediation Center with the Building Peace in Schools program. In the Rotary, like she said, we give scholarships to 4 high school students this year. Is that my time up?
Okay, that's it. I'm sorry.
Okay, well.
We're going to hear from you a little bit more because we have questions also.
All right, go ahead.
Okay, we're going to go back with Mr. Andrew Odom for the first question, and then we'll ask you a question as well. You understand that order?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. The first question is for Mr. Andrew Odom. What is your experience with preparing or authorizing budgets? What is your experience with preparing or authorizing budgets?
Right. So on a smaller level, I serve as PTA president at my daughter's school, so I have that understanding of receiving funds, what to do with funds. On a larger level, professionally, I have started 2 businesses. I have run them, sold them both at a profit, so I understand what it takes to create a business. I understand what it takes to run a business, and I understand what it takes to develop a business that will turn a revenue so that it's not a lost enterprise. Currently at my job, I am the manager of a full program, a custom homes program. So I manage everything from the money coming in, how that money is set up on contracts. I'm aware of how that works. I'm responsible for preparing my own budget within that, the confines of a larger company, and then executing it and staying on task with that budget. I certainly don't have the experience of budgeting at the city level or at the county level, but I do believe that that with the skills that I do have, I'm perfectly capable of learning how to do that, and especially with the guidance of my peers and my colleagues in that seat.
Very good. Next question. I'm going to ask Mr. Dow the same question. What experience do you have in preparing or authorizing budgets?
Well, since I've been in office, I've attended several schools with the Institute of Government, Judiciary, Responsibility for Elected Officials. I'm on the audit committee with the ECC. I've facilitated the audit for the county budget for 3 years in a row. And I think we've done well as far as the budgets that we have to deal with. It's a limited amount of money, and the skill set to do that has to, it's something that I have developed and learned how to do over the years. I mean, like I said, there's a lot of intricate parts with different departments within the county government. You have the DSS, Sheriff's Department, Health Department, and just different departments like that. And you have to look at the money that you have and determine how it can be well spent to serve the citizens of Duplin County.
Very good. The next question is for Mr. Odom. What steps will you take or have taken to increase business development in our county? What do you see as the most important factor a company looks for when investing in new business in our county? And does Duplin County possess those incentives that would attract new business?
It's a good point that you raise. I think that business really rests on a number of different principles, bringing in new business, bringing in new industry. And I think that begins with an understanding of the current business and the current industry that we are represented by most. Of course, I think in Duplin County, it's fair to say that the agricultural element is probably our most lucrative. So I think we need to look towards that. We need to look in the agricultural field, but we also have a rising problem, and that is the amount of high school graduates we have that their first thought upon graduation is, how can I get out of Duplin County? And I think what we need to do is think about what things can we provide that would keep them here. I think one of those elements is something that so many candidates have spoken about before me, and that is rural broadband internet. I think that's so important. We can't expect our county to operate on a global scale, if you will, if we don't have global offerings. I think we need to provide an infrastructure that will allow them to come into this area as they would any other city, any other metropolitan area, and be able to set up a firm foundation for a successful enterprise. I also think that we need to start to explore things like tax incentives. We need to explore things like our basic infrastructure. What do we have to offer them in terms of building? What do we have to offer them in terms of transit? What would make them want to, are they interested in pulling employee base from Duplin County, or are they wanting to bring in employees? So we need to analyze that as well and see if we currently have what it takes to provide them a workforce that's going to create a solid enterprise and a productive enterprise for them.
Very good. The next question is for Mr. Dow. What steps do you support and will you take to make broadband accessible to all citizens?
Okay, like you said before, I'm on the state level. I'm a District 3 supervisor or director with the North Carolina Association of County Commissioners. And what I have done is I've been all the way to Washington, D.C. As of December 2019, I went to Washington, D.C. and met with the representatives in the Trump administration to try and bring funds and broadband to a rural county such as Duplin County. On state level, I work with a number of colleagues that we work together, and it's a collaboration of all 100 counties, and we try to solicit different counties, different private industries to come into our county to assist with broadband. At this time, we are considered a Tier 1 county, so that classifies us as a poor county. With that status, it's hard to get people to put broadband here in this county. I have a meeting with some people this week as far as trying to get some broadband into this county. Duplin County is one of, as a matter of fact, we are the only county in the state that got 3 grants to secure broadband within this county. And hopefully we can add some things as far as broadband is concerned to assist with the schools, with the private citizens, and the municipalities within our county.
Very good. Now, each candidate, we thank you, first of all, both candidates. Each of you will have closing statements. We'll go back to Mr. Odom.
Yes, ma'am. Again, I just want to thank y'all for allowing me to be part of this. I know that as an unaffiliated candidate, it's difficult to kind of establish where I stand on issues. So I thank you for this opportunity to speak. I think it's so important that our county have good representation, solid representation. And I don't by any means want to sit here today and say that the representation we have had has been lackluster, because it has not. But I believe that we're looking forward to a time where there needs to be new ideas, new perspectives, new faces, so that we can move forward in that. People who understand the role of things like rural broadband and how important it is, not just to education, but to industry. Also to things like agriculture, when you're talking about progressive farming and you're talking about farming for the future. I tend to think that we think of issues like rural broadband, just to name one, as an issue that affects maybe our children or generations down. But we need to look forward to how it's going to affect us here and now. I just want to thank you again for letting me be part of this. I look forward to the next month as we approach the election. I know people are already voting. I thank you for your consideration of endorsement. I thank you for your vote. I just ask that no matter what the outcome, no matter what people feel, that you just get out and vote. That's the most important thing. If you want to find out more about me, you can go to www.odumforcommish.com, or you can find me on Facebook at the same address, Odum for Commish. Thank you so much.
And thank you. Now, Mr. Dow, we hear closing remarks from you.
All right. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to come before you on this virtual forum. My sincere hope is that we have a future that we can all come together, and Duplin County can be one of the prosperous counties within the state of North Carolina. We are the best county in the state, and I often brag about Duplin County everywhere I go. So hopefully we can do well this year.
Thank you so much, Mr. Andrew Odum and Mr. Jesse Lee Dow III.
Thank you, Mr.
Candidates for Duplin County Commissioner, District 4.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming and have a good afternoon.
Thank you, you too.
Have a good day.
Our next candidate is a candidate for the North Carolina District Court Judge, District 4, Seat 5. Carol Jones, good afternoon. How are you?
Good afternoon, Jackie. I'm doing fine. How are you?
Wonderful, wonderful. We thank you for coming and participating in this political forum. I'd like to share something about Carol Jones. She is a graduate of Shaw University Divinity School, Master of Arts, Christian Education in 2015. She also attended the Institute of Political Leadership, UNC Wilmington, 1999, North Carolina Central University School of Law, 1994, University of North Carolina at Chapel Hill in 1989, Public Schools of Duplin County, 1985. She was elected to the as a district court judge, in November 2000. She was the first female elected to a judgeship in the 4th district, presides over family, juvenile, traffic, civil, and criminal courts, treating all who appear before her with respect and dignity. She is a certified juvenile court judge. She has served as an assistant district attorney in the 4th district for 6 years with daily courtroom experience dealing directly with the public in Duplin, Jones, Onslow, and Sampson counties. Established the domestic violence unit of the 4th prosecutorial district and the Onslow County Teen Court Program. She has been the instructor of the evidence class with the paralegal program at the Coastal Carolina Community College. And the class consisted of approximately 25 students, composed assignments and tests, and conducted the grading. She clerked for Judge James Wynn Jr., researched the applicable laws, and participated in drafting opinions. Community involvement entails volunteer and past board member of teen court programs, volunteer with Meals on Wheels of Duplin County, advisory board state employees credit union, advisory board North Carolina Institute of Political Leadership. And the list goes on and on. She is so talented. Judge Jones is married to Pastor Victor L. Wilson, and together they have 3 adult children and 2 grandchildren. She is a member of the People's Church of Clinton, North Carolina, where she serves as executive church administrator, financial secretary, Bible teacher, and choir member. To our audience out there, I introduce to you Carol Jones, who is a candidate for the North Carolina District Court Judge District 4, Seat 5. Thank you for joining us. We're glad to have you.
You're welcome. It is good to be here. I want to thank the Duplin County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Incorporated for having this forum. I want to thank everyone who has participated and everyone watching, and thank you to our moderator, Ms. Jackie L. Swenson, for that introduction. I am Judge Carol Jones, and I serve as one of your district court judges, and I have done so since the year 2000. And so I have 20 years experience on the bench as one of your district court judges here in Duplin, Jones, Onslow, and Sampson counties. And I am seeking re-election this year. Ms. Swenson just informed you that I was born and raised here in Duplin County, a native of Kenansville. I'm also the 11th child of 13 children to the late Sarah and Thomas Jones. And so I grew up here locally in Kenansville. After graduating from high school and completing my undergraduate degree at Carolina, my law degree at North Carolina Central University, I came back home to my home district and began working as one of your assistant DAs for 6 years until the year 2000, when I decided to run for district court judge. And I made history being the first female to be elected as a district court judge or in any judicial seat in this district. And so I am seeking re-election this year, and I humbly ask for your continued support and your votes this election. Thank you.
Very good. I have a few questions for you. The first one is, over the last several years, our political system has become so partisan, and politicians are unable or unwilling to work together for the benefit of their constituents. What qualities do you possess, and how would you use them to encourage bipartisan support for issues affecting your constituents? That's the script. Okay, very good. Let me have a follow-up question with that one.
Okay.
Now that judicial elections are partisan, tell us whether you are liberal or conservative, and how you will balance your philosophies and beliefs while being an independent judge.
All right, thank you for that question. As I stated, I've been on the bench now for 20 years. When I was elected in the year 2000, the elections for judges were partisan. Since then, they've been nonpartisan, but yes, this year they are partisan again. But whether partisan or nonpartisan, I believe the judicial branch is a nonpartisan branch of government. Because if, as you heard some of the state level judges state earlier, that when a case comes before us, our political affiliation, our personal beliefs, they do not play a role in how we decide the case. As a judge, I listen to the case and the relevant facts and apply the law as written. We are under oath to follow our state laws, our local laws, and the United States Constitution. And so everyone that comes into our courtrooms, everyone that comes into my courtroom will be listened to fairly, regardless of your political affiliation, regardless of your education, your religion, or your gender. Now, there are some cases that come before me where the judge has some discretion, but I have continued to exercise that discretion fairly, and I will continue to do so. And it's not based on who you are or where you come from.
Mm-hmm. I'm sorry, that was a question for the another candidate.
I understand.
Number 2, what do you propose to increase courtroom efficiency, especially now with the limitations imposed on courtroom attendance due to COVID-19?
All right. It is part of our duties as a judge, I believe, is to run an efficient and safe courtroom. And that is something I've always sought to do. Our courts, when I'm to hold court, I like to start on time at 9:30. And so that everyone knows to be in court by the time that your notice told you to be in court, and that your case would be handled fairly. that you're not waiting around too long, that you're not, you know, spending the whole day at the courthouse for a speeding ticket.
Mm-hmm.
And so I try to handle the cases efficiently. Coupled with that, I want to give everyone a chance to be heard. I do not rush people. I do not rush the lawyers. I try to give everyone a chance to be heard. So if we have to be there until after 5 o'clock, then we have to be there until after 5 o'clock. But of course, given this new atmosphere we're in with the pandemic, as Chief Justice Beasley stated, she has cut back on the number of people that we're to allow in court. We have to set up each courtroom so there is adequate social distancing. We don't want to have overloaded dockets so that too many people are at the courtroom at one time, which puts the people, the public in danger. It can put the workers that work at the courthouse in danger and everyone in the courtroom. So we're trying to have a safe courtroom, but at the same time dispose of the cases. During the pandemic, some cases, well, not some cases, but during the pandemic, we can't hear as many cases as we usually hear. We have very large dockets in district court. They can be hundreds of cases scheduled for one day. And so outside of the pandemic, I try to dispose of as many cases as possible in that one day. But right now, of course, our dockets are much smaller for safety reasons.
Very good. One other thing I'd like to say to you, we thank you for taking out your time today to represent your constituents for this political forum, and we hope you have a good day.
All right. Thank you, and thank you for having me.
Our next candidate is a candidate for Duplin County Commissioner, District 5. He is Mr. Wayne E. Branch. How are you doing this afternoon, sir?
I'm doing well. How are you,
Great,
Sister Jaquel?
great. It's still in the afternoon. It won't be evening until after 6.
Okay.
Okay, so
Let's see if I can help you with that.
Yes, sir. I'd like to share your bio and a few words about you. You said
Go right ahead.
you are running for Duplin County Commissioner District 5, and you've been a resident of Duplin County for more than 20 years or more. You said you first came to Duplin County while working as a trooper with the North Carolina State Highway Patrol. And you traveled many highways of this great county, enforcing the traffic laws of North Carolina and rendering assistance and support to many Duplin County residents. You ask support now as you seek to become a voice for your fellow District 5 residents, as well as all the residents of Duplin County. In the past, generally, you stayed in the shadows assisting others. For many years, you say, I have never had a real name. I accepted a name that everybody called me, which was, you are Anita Power's husband. I would just smile and respond with yes. However, my candidacy to become your county commissioner requires I share my name and my qualifications and abilities to be your county commissioner. I am so proud of all that my wife has done and continues to do for the citizens in Duplin County, and she has inspired me to become a more visible public servant. The residents of Duplin County District 5 deserve a knowledgeable, responsible, and effective leader who can work hand in hand with other commissioners, elected officials, and county personnel to deal responsibly in county fiscal matters, work to bring industry to stimulate economic growth, and provide safe living environments resulting from great community police relationships, just to name a few. I believe that together we can all benefit from an inclusive environment where we can all have opportunities to achieve successful and comprehensive goals. He wants to serve Duplin County because he feels genuinely that he cares about all people. He believes that people need to have someone who is committed to serve for the right reasons, to be a voice and work on behalf of the people in the district and the county, basing all decisions and duties on the needs and wishes of the people who voted to elect him. He says, I am committed to the following pillars. I commit to be respectful to everyone. I commit to be responsive to those who seek my attention. And I commit to be resourceful in providing you with information and answers to your questions. I will be intentional in my efforts to speak up and speak about any decisions, policies, or other matters that impact the citizens of Duplin County. To our listening audience, I introduce you to Mr. Wayne E. Branch. He is a candidate for Duplin County Commissioner District 5. Mr. Branch, thanks again for coming.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you for the introduction, Sister Jaquel. Also, at this time, I would like to go on the record and say that I am very appreciative to the Duplin County Alumnae Chapter Delta Sigma Theta for taking out the time to put together such a very worthy and much needed forum to allow so many people to come out and share information about themselves. Furthermore, I would like to say that I am just honored to have the opportunity to be showcased with so much talent. So many politicians that's out there sharing information about themselves. Just to be in the same virtual room is very humbling, but I take full appreciation for the opportunity. As stated, my name is Wayne Branch, and I am running for Duplin County Commissioner District 5. I do believe I'm a little different from all that's come before me. I am fortunate enough to have won my primary, and as a result of that, I do not have opposition in the general election. For that, I am grateful. But I do not take anything for granted. My name is still on the ballot, and I still need those to go out and put the spot on the bubble beside my name to make it final. I'm looking forward to my swearing in December of this year, and I look forward to working with the current commissioners in any way that I can to move Duplin County forward.
All right, with that said, I have two questions for you, Mr. Branch. The first one is, what is the single most need you see for Duplin County, and what will you do as a county commissioner to address the need?
As I stated, I am commissioner-elect. So as a result of the primary, I immediately started going to the meetings to become familiar with faces, as well as understanding of the different departments for which we serve as commissioners in this county. I've heard a lot of different things from a lot of different citizens, but I think the most consistent thing that I hear that is probably as troubling as the coronavirus. The coronavirus is definitely taking lives, but there's another virus that we operate under, and that's the virus called been doing. There's a lot of things that take place in this county as a result of what we've been doing. I look forward to the opportunity of sitting down at the table and being a uniter of all that's involved in local government, working with the county commissioners, working with different parties for the better good of the people. I want to be a Duplin County Commissioner to serve people, not self, or not certain zip codes, or not certain addresses. I think we all should come together and work together for a common cause to make life and make opportunities better for our constituents that we serve.
Very good. I have one more question, and it involves our political system. Over the last several years, our political system has become so partisan, and politicians are unable or unwilling to work together for the benefit of our constituents, or for the benefit of their constituents. What qualities do you possess, and how would you use them to encourage bipartisan support for issues affecting your constituents?
I would say I have, the one thing that I didn't note in my bio is that I'm an ordained minister. And as a result of being an ordained minister, I've accepted the responsibility of service of all mankind. I feel that there's too much separation based on party, be it Republican Party, unaffiliated, Democrat. And I'm a born, bred Democrat through and through. But when it comes to making decisions, you can't be too far left and you can't be too far right. And you can't be basically in the middle, outside of the middle, for lack of better terms. The best way to move things forward is come together. In the center is where things take place. Having discussions, having communication for the better good of us all, not getting caught up in the party for which we say we're a part of. We have to work together as a strong, united team, doing the things that we say we want to do for the people, by the people, and with the people. And the more we can do towards erasing the Democratic, Republican dispositions when it comes down to getting down to what we need to do to make change, the better we all will be. It's always been a Republican and Democratic Party, but it hasn't always been this divide that we currently face, where individuals will just join a line in the sand. If it's not a Republican initiative, we're not going to support it. If it's not a Democratic initiative, we're not going to support it. It needs to be an initiative to make things better for the people. When we can do that, we can move things forward in unity and support of those who we say we want to serve.
We thank you so much for joining us, for taking out your time, as I said, this afternoon. And I hope that you enjoy the rest of your afternoon and into the evening. We will now have remarks from our chairpersons, Ms. Anita Howard Branch. I guess I should have made some comments.
I would like to thank everyone for participating in our candidate forum this afternoon. And thank you for educating our listeners to your positions on matters that are important to the citizens of Duplin County. We have definitely received information that will assist the constituents in making their choice of candidates in all of the various state and local positions. I would like to thank the Social Action Committee for all of their hard work in putting this candidate forum together. The committee members consist of Nicoria Dobson, Jeree Smith, Elaine Powell, Anna Jones, Penny Thorne, Clarice Williams, Teresa Best, Valerie Carr Williams, and Clarice Williams. I thank you all from the bottom of my heart for all that you do for Duplin County Alumni Chapter of Delta Sigma Theta Sorority Incorporated. Lastly, our forum will be streamed online on Facebook on Tuesday, October the 13th, 2020 at 7 p.m. just prior to the start of early voting, which occurs on October the 15th. Please share this information with your family and friends. And again, thank you. God bless each one of you. And to all of you, I wish a good night. Thank you.